Go ahead. I need a push projector?
Yep.
Can you see that?
I did. Okay.
You're good.
Okay. All right, let's take roll.
Oh, we did that.
We've already done.
Oh, thank you. All right, everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Still here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any agenda changes or conflicts this evening?
Yes,
Okay, go Paula, then Charlie.
they're right. We already done.
Okay, Paula.
I'm just asking that we move the Glenwood Canyon Restoration Alliance charter off the consent agenda because I have a conflict with that. Or I can speak with the whole consent agenda.
Yeah, I'm fine with removing that and considering that as a separate item.
So. You handle what's in there.
Okay. We'll just put it on the first agenda item to, right, talk about.
Mr. Mayor, because I do have a question for at least one member of the audience. If you were going to be taking comment from the public on the RFMBA item, the chairman of your Parks and Rec Commission is here and just wondered if he should comment now or at the item.
Yeah, I think at the item would be appropriate.
I'm not chair anymore, but I've been designated by the Parks and Rec.
Sorry.
Okay. Any other agenda changes or conflicts? Okay, citizens appearing before council. These are for items not on the agenda. Okay. Council comments. Go ahead, Tony.
It's December, so I just want to wish everyone a happy holiday. I don't know if I'll see you till next year, so happy New Year. Thank you. You're welcome.
I'll do Tony's comments, staff and fellow council members. You all have a great holiday. I'd like to say I miss seeing you until the first meeting in January, but I have one other just administrative thing. When I got a council a couple years ago, I was appointed to the council representative to the Intermountain TPR group, and Terry rectified the name wrong. And since I moved off transportation, I asked Ingrid if she took my place transportation to do that. She's agreed to participate in that. And there's actually a Zoom meeting tomorrow. So Mr. Mayor, if you just change that appointment, I think you can do that so we have that taken care of.
So moved. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's a good group.
That's all I have.
I would like to also ditto again, happy holidays to everybody in the whole community. It's been a busy and year full of unexpected events, and good and bad. And I just hope everybody has a nice holiday to take a little bit of a break this time of year.
One is that Paula Stepp, Councilor Stepp, has asked that she be appointed as the primary liaison to the RWAPA, the Brunei Water and Power Authority. And while I love the organization, I recognize that it's a passion for hers as well. So if we could appoint her as the primary.
Anybody have any issues?
No.
Okay, great. And then the second is just
Thank you.
to kind of echo,
And thank you for your service.
yeah,
So
echo Councilor Willman and Councilor Hershey's, but to extend it to all our staff. Just a huge gratitude. At the end of the year, I think we can say you all work so hard, so diligently for the city, and it shows in so much of the inner workings and functionality of our community, both from a budgetary perspective as well as just being downtown and seeing it pretty and clean. So thank you all, and I hope all the staff, as well as my fellow councilors, and the community has a good holiday season.
I'll just say for any staff, I couldn't say that any better. Staff has been fantastic. It's been a pleasure serving with you guys. And we have our staff Christmas party tomorrow evening, so look forward to seeing all the staff there, especially Brian. All right. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item G.
I'll second that.
Moved by Counselor Hershey, seconded by Counselor.
Oh.
Shelley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, so onto the regular agenda, we will now consider,
Now we gotta do G.
yes, we will now consider G.
Oh,
I was kidding.
Ms.
Going
Steph's
to
going to recuse herself, Your Honor. Mr. Mayor. Your Honorable Mr.
Either
Mayor.
way. Item G, Glenwood Canyon Restoration Alliance Charter. Is there a motion?
I'll move to accept the Glenwood Canyon Restoration Alliance Charter.
second.
Been moved by Counselor Copp, seconded by Counselor Willman. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. All right, item number 12, Black Hills Energy.
I think they are planning to be on Zoom.
Oh,
If the electricity holds out.
okay.
Oh, wait, they're gas, right?
Yes.
But depends on where you're at.
So I'm not sure if it's one of the, sorry, I'm not used to this yet. If it's one of the things they just talk from the ceiling, Alyssa.
Do we know who the person is so that she can promote them?
Oh.
Who's the person?
Is that we can promote them?
Carly West is one of them.
Yeah, I do. My name is one of my password.
Hello.
So, hi, Carl.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh.
good evening.
Good evening. Sorry, I missed out on a second while I was switching me over to the panelist spot. So just let me know if you'd like me to start or if there's anything else you need to do on your end.
I think you're great, Carly.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight. We really appreciate it and especially appreciate the opportunity to be here virtually as well. I will go ahead and share my screen. And can I ask, are you seeing just the one slide or are you seeing the kind of slideshow slide?
Just one slide.
Perfect. Thank you. So I am Carly West. I am recently the manager of government affairs for Black Hills Energy, but until recently have been working as our community affairs manager. So I'm stepping a little bit back into that role tonight to talk with you. We just wanted to take this opportunity to give you an update on actions that we are taking around sustainability at Black Hills Energy. Before I jump into sustainability, I did want to touch quickly on winter ready in Colorado. So as sorry, let me back up. We know that commodities prices are in the news a lot lately, and we greatly understand the impact that any increases have on our customers. And that's whether it's the fuel in our cars or the energy in our homes that keep us comfortable during the winter. So we just wanted to quickly address what that looks like. We're using data and our more than 130 years of utility experience to respond to a more dynamic natural gas marketplace than we've seen in recent years. We're also making an effort to help our customers across our 8 states to use less energy through conservation and energy efficiency. For our residential customers, usage really is the largest portion of energy bills, and weather or temperature is one of the biggest factors in increased usage. Customers can find some easy DIY tips and reminders for how to minimize wasted energy at home on our Winter Ready webpage. And we definitely understand that even sometimes with weatherization and energy efficiency tips, some customers may still be struggling to pay their bills. So we would encourage them to reach out to our customer service team for help. Customers who want to manage their spending are encouraged to enroll in our budget billing program. It's a free payment plan that averages the amount that you pay each month over the year. So the budget option supports customers who are looking to avoid those seasonal increases in bills that result during your really cold weather months versus your more moderate temperatures in the summer. There's a lot of information available at our website on blackhillsenergy.com/winter ready. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to point that out, as I know that natural gas prices are a concern on everyone's mind right now. Moving on to sustainability, I'll talk a little bit about how Black Hills Energy is looking at our commitment to sustainability and our commitment to making tomorrow even better than today. Our approach is focused on keeping people at the center of our decision-making while delivering on our mission to improve life with energy. We've set ambitious yet achievable goals for improving the climate using technology that's available today. We've set clean energy goals for both our gas and electric operations. For our gas utility, we've set a goal of a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions intensity by 2035. And our gas utilities have already reduced greenhouse gas emissions by over a third, and we operate a really tight modern system. So there's no cast iron pipe on our system, and nearly 99% of our infrastructure is already comprised of materials with the lowest emissions factors. We're utilizing a range of methods to reduce emissions, and in addition to these strategies, we'll also be filing a plan with the PUC based on the recently passed clean heat legislation, and that will help to further reduce emissions. First, we've joined the EPA Methane Challenge and the One Future Coalition. In the Methane Challenge program, partners transparently report systematic and comprehensive actions to reduce emissions. We've committed to 3 best management practices in this voluntary program, which is actually the most among our peers. And as part of our nation's energy future, also known as One Future, members work to voluntarily reduce methane emissions across the natural value chain and limit emissions to less than 1% by 2025. So what that means is that from start to finish, starting with production all the way through gathering, processing, transmission, storage, and distribution, that less than 1% of natural gas product will be lost to fugitive emissions along the way. And the coalition includes all types of companies, so utilities, E&P, processors, distribution, and it represents more than 15% of the US natural gas value chain. There is a lot of opportunity to utilize new technology as part of our sustainability goals. Renewable natural gas, we have a team dedicated to finding and bringing to fruition projects to harness methane that's generated at sites like feedlots, landfills, and wastewater treatment facilities and bring that onto our system. Hydrogen is an incredible opportunity to ultimately deliver clean emissions-free energy through the pipeline system, and it can be used to store and deliver excess energy from wind and solar. It's a technology that's definitely in its infancy, but it has a lot of potential. ZVAC is a technology that we've recently tried out to reduce methane emissions. When a pipeline needs to be depressurized, instead of releasing gas to atmosphere, the equipment moves the gas out of the pipeline being depressurized and puts it into another section of the system so that you can perform a blowdown while minimizing the amount of methane gas that is released to the atmosphere. Combined heat and power is an energy efficient technology that generates electricity and then captures the heat that would otherwise be wasted and uses that to provide useful thermal energy, things like steam or hot water, and that can be used for space heating, domestic hot water, and other industrial processes. In summary, there was also a paper that was recently released from the Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs, and it argued that upgrades to the natural gas infrastructure could help the country meet its net zero greenhouse gas emissions goals faster than would otherwise be possible. And that study concluded that in the future, the gas grid could be transporting 100% carbon-free fuels through a mix of natural gas with carbon capture and storage, biomethane, and zero carbon hydrogen. We also have a robust program dedicated to energy efficiency. For 2021, we have a budget of $5.45 million for our Colorado gas program, and that has a goal of reducing annual energy usage by more than 1.5 million therms, and the equivalent of taking about 1,800 passenger vehicles off of the road. Our energy efficiency efforts over the past 3 years have resulted in 3.8 million therms of energy savings overall. Additionally, we've worked on some really great energy efficiency projects in Glenwood Springs over the past few years. In response to the pandemic, we created a new infrared heater rebate so that restaurants and other businesses could serve guests outside even when the weather got colder. And we were able to partner with Vico's Charcoal Drive-In to take advantage of the program with a rebate of more than $3,000 for heaters for the patio. And the Garfield County Detention Center was able to take advantage of more than $37,000 in rebates and save almost 14,000 therms through installation of 3 high-efficiency boilers, implementing an advanced heating control system, and installing high-efficient domestic hot water equipment. Finally, as a utility that provides both gas and electric service, we've been really interested in better understanding electrification policies and what their potential impacts are. We wanted to take a closer look at what that could mean for our customers. So we partnered with GTI, which is a leading research nonprofit out of Chicago with strong experience in energy research. We worked with them to study the impacts of residential natural gas and electricity use in 6 geographies across our service area. And what we found is that there are a number of challenges and findings that are worth exploring and taking into consideration as plans for our collective energy future are considered. There's certainly not time tonight to get into the detail of that study, but if you're interested after our presentation, the link here is public and it takes you to those studies. And I would say we would also love the opportunity to present either to council or to staff on that topic in the future and have a more in-depth conversation about the energy future for Glenwood Springs. With that, thank you so much for having us, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
Sure.
Go ahead, Paul.
I'm super excited about what you guys are doing. Are you also influential with the gas production industry, you know, or oil and there's a lot of oil and gas, obviously, development here in the area, and are you able to influence them as far as being more proactive on their sustainability efforts?
So I would say that while we're not specifically in the oil and gas industry, we do work with our partners in that industry. A lot of regulations and a lot of equipment and technology and ideas that we're looking at, they are looking at as well. So our approach to methane is very similar in a lot of regards. As to the influence that we have, I don't know that I'd be able to speak to that today, but we're certainly partners with the industry. We certainly are looking to support the industry overall in all of our efforts to move to a cleaner energy future.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, Carly, thank you so much. We appreciate the presentation and all the stuff you guys are doing.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And again, we'd love to talk more. So just let us know if we can provide you any additional information.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, item number 13, Glenwood Springs Historical Grant Society grant request.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. City Manager, Councilor, and Chief. Since I haven't seen you and appeared to give my report since before the pandemic, I want to give a brief look at our financials for 2021. Since we're only a month out from that, I don't think it'll change that much. We're a nonprofit, so all that we do financially is available online. And so for anybody that would like to see more detail, I suggest you do that. What we accomplished during the pandemic, in March, we had a grant we put in with the city discretionary fund for $27,442. We withdrew that because at the time we were concerned that city staff was going to be laid off, and I didn't think it was right to take that discretionary money when it could be used for staff. We had living history videos. We put history before the people instead of expecting them to come to the museum, and we did that with a partnership with the Post Independent with 13 videos, and it was well received by the public. And then we live streamed the Ghost Walk through grants that we obtained, and we translated that into Spanish. But now we want to talk about right now. We have an opportunity with the Save America's Treasures grant that probably won't come again. It's between $125,000 and $500,000. And a lot of important sites have been saved by this grant, and our site is on the National Register. That site is the coke ovens in Cardiff. and it has to be on the National Register to receive these funds. It's a 1-to-1 match. And we're very fortunate to have Mobley Cooper and Steve Beckley and A&B Bank president there, Mr. Dyer, to sponsor us to put the grant together with a grant writer that we've used before successfully. And so this is what we're trying to say. You can't see it very well, but the red portion there on the left was donated to us by Balcom and Delaney after some of the coke ovens were destroyed. And this is the community of Cardiff to the right of that first slide. And then this is a view on the right slide of how they look from Highway 82. We started back in 1998 trying to do something about the coke ovens. We had a report done. We had $35,000 in grant from the Colorado Gaming Fund, and that grant went toward producing this report. The problem was, on the right there, you can see at the bottom there, the amount for that grant in 1998 was $900,280. That kind of scared the Historical Society away from pursuing that grant, because the idea is, like right now, we have a historic assessment grant on our building. The idea is then you go back after you do the assessment and you ask for more money. Well, there was not $900,000 offered by anybody in the grant at that time. And so we weren't able to implement what that particular report said we needed to do. And we're using that now as a starting place for the grant we're filing with the Save America grant with the Park Service. Back in all the way 92, 93 is when the coke ovens started to be demolished. And of course, it was private land, and that's perfectly fine. On private land, you have private land rights, but at the same time, you can't save everything. And so we were glad that Balcom and Delaney deeded us their property, as I showed you earlier, and also that in 2017, Pete Waller donated the rest of the coke ovens. There were originally 249 ovens. There's only 50 left now. We have all those and deeded to us. They were built in the late 1800s, and there's really not anything like them except probably in Redstone. What makes these unique is they were trying a different method of coking, which was evident after an excavation of part of the site. And of course, the number one threat, I think at this time, if you've been reading the paper at all, has been for the city and for us is vandalism. I don't know if it's the same vandal that did this, but they tore out the site interpretive sign you can see there with just a pedestal left, and we tried to get the vandalism off of that, the painting, but it didn't work too well. So we recognize that we have to do something about that, and this grant will enable us to do that. Then time and the elements have really taken the toll on this. The facing stones were used by people that came along and after the coke ovens were abandoned, and the Sumner's place as an example of that used many of those. It was his property at the time, and he used a lot of those in his construction. And they're slowly being, they're collapsing, and trees are growing up around them, and sage. And in this one side on the left there, you see that all that's left are what the stones that were placed in there to fill in between each coke oven. On top, there was a railroad track, and mules pulled along a dory that then dropped the coal into the ovens, and then it was turned into coke by high heat. Indifference is also, I think, part of why sites aren't saved in time before they're destroyed or before they fall apart. And I thought this title, Historic Coke Ovens Demand to be Saved. Well, coke ovens can't say anything, so it was letters to the editor and public opinion that comes and goes and ebbs and flows that really made a difference. And it seems to be making a difference now. We've had people call us after the vandalism article in the paper and offering us for donations to help. And then at the right there, it says Linwood Historical Society hopes to fix ovens. Well, hope is not a strategy. And so you can hope all you want to, and nothing will happen. Neither is passion. I could get up here and I could tear my hair out and catch on fire and just go mad about what we need to do about the coke ovens. And that wouldn't produce much either. So there's things that we can do to honor the men and women that lived here and that no longer are any of the houses, except just a few off to the right. The bottom slide there shows a few of the housings units that the families lived in, the women and children and the men worked at the coke ovens. None of that in the middle slide is around today. It's all gone. Cardiff is just a memory except for the houses that are there now. But nothing like it used to be. The schoolhouse was saved. It's sort of in the middle right of that photo. You can't see it too well. And so are the coke ovens. So the coke ovens are the last remains. The slide to the right and the top shows the Midland, Colorado Railroad with a mercantile store next to it. And that's gone. So how can we then honor the descendants of these people that lived here are among us right now? Many people that are outstanding citizens in this community are descendants of the people that lived at Sunlight on the left, the Sunlight mine in the middle, and then in 1922, that's all that was left of Sunlight. And really, what I'm here for is I am appearing also at the Garfield County Monday, December 6th meeting, at which time I'll be requesting $50,000 from their Conservation Trust Fund. I've already spoken to the three commissioners, and I believe that that will happen because of the desire to be part of this grant. And so I'm asking the same thing from you. Now, one way to handle that would be the vacancy savings that have happened from the people that no longer are working or the positions you can't fill. Rather than just dump that money back into the general fund, why not use it as matching for this grant? With the county and with your contribution, should you choose to do that, then that's the amount we need. We'll be matching that for $200,000 would be what we would get from that grant. So I'd like a decision tonight, not to give us the money yet, but to give a letter of intent, a letter of commitment that if we win the grant, we may not, but if we do, then in the next year, that money would be invested in these coke ovens to save them. And so that's my desire today, to ask you to spend money that you haven't been able to use for something like this project. Any questions?
Questions for Bill? Go ahead, Charlie.
Sure. So I understand you're trying to get 100,000 from the two governments and then we need $200,000 in the one. Correct.
Right.
What are you going to do with that? I don't see a budget on how you spend that money.
Well, we're going to stabilize the site. This continues to fall in. If you've been to the redstone ovens from the inside, they put brick that's modern brick, so you can tell the difference to keep them from collapsing anymore. We have to clear some brushes and sage stone and all the other stuff that's around it. Really is allowing the vandals to hide behind and do their damage. And as a city, you already have a matching part with us that we're working on with the city, and that's around $200,000 to put some vertical parking lots, structures or parking lot in there and some lights and stuff that would help us to counter some of the vandalism. We're putting up a hidden camera here this week as well to try to do that. So it would basically be 3 ovens that we'd like to preserve and interpret and show people what it used to look like and what the ovens used to look like. For the facing stones, we won't be able to put on with this grant, but we'll be able to if we get another grant with the state after we do the Save America's Treasures grant. And we'll be able then to recreate 2 or 3 of the ovens. So that's what the money would go toward.
Deborah, do we still have any FAB funding left over in the 2021?
It's a better questions for Steve. I'm just not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we're carrying over about $75,000, and then we'll put another 230,000 or so in 2022.
And is there other opportunities for funding other than?
I would not recommend that would be a funding source. If council is interested in funding this, I would say capital fund would be more appropriate. and or you guys did take, we did increase tourism unallocated dollars by about $100,000. That's also an option you have available.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for the presentation.
thank you guys. for-
I didn't realize, I remember some conversations a while back, but I didn't realize this had been going on this long, or has it kind of sat for a while, just since the 90s?
We've had all kinds of folks come out and Boy Scouts and volunteers to try to keep the vegetation from really destroying any of the coke ovens. But, you know, grubbing out vegetation is a difficult job and a lot of people volunteer. They don't last too long in doing that. So
Right.
what we've contacted is the Rocky Mountain Youth Corps and Historic Corps. We're in negotiation with them on what it would take from their contribution matching to be able to help us to clear the land. Because that's
Okay.
going to be quite a.
Do you guys have like a, going back a little bit to Charlie's questions, do you have like a plan on what the final vision is on, you know, as far as making this a site that people can visit, or what's the?
This is really phase one of trying to get it stabilized, just so that we can do the other things we'd like to do. Since that road, the airport road that it's next to is going to be improved to go to the tunnel or the bridge or whatever it's going to take to connect 82. That's where we thought that the funds that you're matching us with for the parking lot and the lights will help us to make that look like it really should look. A historic site that's on the National Register should be a lot better looking than that. It should draw visitors. It should be, you know, the kind of site that many of you visited that you're interested in, that people, the public likes to see. And so that's phase one. And if that grant goes through and we're funded that way, then we'll go back and reconstruct 3 of the ovens. And again, put in interpretive signs so that people will know what was there before and what's there now and the
Okay,
difference.
and what's the total budget for phase one? You said that, so the matching is 100,000, is the grant 200 or another 100?
The grant is about, going to be about 250,000. We're contributing all the money we made from the Ghost Walk, which is $10,000. That's our contribution. We'd do more if we could. And then if some other people come along that want to fund us, then certainly we'll have the amount of money we'd like, the 250,000.
So the budget for phase one is about,
250,000.
okay, thanks.
Councilor Wilson.
Councilor Hershey is the liaison to the Historic Preservation Board, are you not?
I am.
Okay. I don't think there's any representatives. Do you know if they have a position or they have had a recommendation on this?
I do not
Okay. It's curious if we've had any feedback from them on this.
appreciate that, but thank you. I actually didn't hear about this until Deborah told me yesterday.
Bill,
Yes,
sorry, maybe I missed this. So you're asking us tonight for letter of support.
Right.
But if you do get the grant,
right.
then we would be asked to produce funds in what amount?
50,000.
50,000, okay. And are you going to the county and asking as well?
Right, their money is already earmarked from the Conservation Trust Fund. Will be where they get that 50,000.
Okay, so it'd be an equal split with the county?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, if you want to increase it more than what the county's given, we can do that.
Sure. We could show them up, right, guys? Go ahead, Paul.
Did you, Bill, remind me, did you say that A and B Bank and Glenwood, Steve Beckley and Mobley Fairbanks, they're contributing money or?
They contribute money for the grant writer
For
so
the
that we
grant,
can
right.
get the grant.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, it's county money. I mean, I met with each of the county commissioners separately. I would have met with each of you and I would have had this room full of people yelling and screaming, save the cocoa. But I don't think that's the way to do business, having a bunch of people come in here. You've been assaulted enough, I think, by folks over things and decisions you made. So I would have liked to have had time. The grant's due the 14th of this month. We've been working on it 2 months.
Tom. I say,
You got a
oh, I didn't know I had. I'm new to the council.
Councilor Hershey.
Oh, So we have an HPC meeting Monday night. We're doing some interviews and stuff, but I'm happy to raise it then, but until I know more, I'm just reluctant to commit to $50,000, but thank you.
Yeah, I guess, Bill, did you take this before our historic preservation?
They know about it, yes. Carolyn Sipperly, who was the project manager on this, has appeared. She's part of the preservation group, and she's already informed them. So I don't know. I haven't heard back on what they think of it, but they do know about it.
Okay.
Is it okay to make a comment? Or are we still?
I think we're still in questions. I wouldn't mind opening this up back up. to
Okay,
public
then I'll.
comment. Does anybody from the public would like to comment on this? Okay, no, go ahead. Renee, come on up. You gotta come up
Do I
though.
have to come up?
You
there?
do,
Can I
ma'am, you
just
gotta
speak
come up.
here?
Nope, sorry. We gotta hear your beautiful voice in the microphone.
Thanks, Renee.
Well, since I live close by, do you want my address and all that? Because I want to comment on another.
Oh,
issue.
yeah, you can.
Okay, I live in Glenwood Park,
What's your name?
1000, but,
What's your name?
oh, my name's Renee McCullough. I live at 1000 Mount Silvers Drive, which is very, very close to the coke ovens, and I've always looked at them, and I walk by there sometimes once a week for, I don't know, 20 years. It's very sad to me to see those coke ovens being eroded away, demolished. I've seen homeless people live in them. It's to me, it's very, very sad that we don't have something that looks more like the Redstone coke ovens, where, you know, you can tell that they're being taken care of, they're being, you know, preserved. And to me, to look at the coke ovens every time you pass by and see them, and knowing that it's a very historic situation, would, to me, would be very sad if the money didn't come. And quite frankly, I'm willing to write a check for $1,000 myself to make this to be 49,000. So that's my
Wow. That's a heck of a comment. Anybody else want to comment? We only need 49 more people to comment tonight.
49.50.
Thank you, Renee. That's really amazing. Oh, comments.
Thank you. I'm a bit of a history buff, so it's a little tainted in that direction, but I have to say that I go places and I visit these spots. And as a matter of fact, I was in Vermont this summer and spent 2 or 3 hours visiting a previous work camp from CPC, the Conservation Corps, that happened in the 30s. And I just think these are the kind of values that I think are really important to us. I was involved in the rural recreation economic team that happened with us a year or so ago, where we had some grant money from DC saying, what do you need in this area? And it came down to things like taking care of our cultural and historical values, providing recreation opportunities, really kind of reaching out to the community. These are the kind of things that I think we should support if we have the funding. So I would definitely like to propose that we offer that letter of support for this particular project, and we consider finding funding when that opportunity comes. If you get the grant, that we could possibly match that. It sounds like there's opportunities for funding in the tourism fund. There's opportunities for funding in this year's FAB money, and let's see us look at taking care of something that's really important and of value to our community here.
I could be wrong, but I think the request from Bill was a financial commitment in the letter.
Great. Okay. So that means that that funding we'd have to look at for next year out of the budget?
Yeah. You got Chris, but. Counselor Davis.
Did it wind up?
You haven't had a chance to even speak, so go ahead and I can.
Well, I'm falling right into a motion. So do you want to
Oh.
talk before that?
Um,
We have to move this meeting along.
Yeah.
Yes, we
So-
do.
Okay, go ahead and make your.
You know, I think that history in this community is very important. And I think that we have lost so many sites of historical significance in Glenwood. Most recently, the historic Grand Avenue Bridge. And we really need to preserve these sites at whatever that cost is. And so my motion would be to offer you that letter of support, but it also is to match up to whatever the county's support is, up to 50,000. If they come in at 25, then that's where we are as well. And the other part of my motion would be for Deborah to use her discretion on where those funds come from, because I'm certainly not smart enough to figure that out.
Second.
Thank you.
And moved by Counselor Davis, seconded by Counselor Hershey. Go ahead.
Oh, honestly, Steve encapsulated everything I would have said.
Well, thank you.
Counselor Willman.
Thank you. Bill, I also going to vote for this, but I'm going to ask that before we give you the money, I want to see a budget. I'm a little, I have to tell you, I'm a little put off. I'm trying to make a decision. I looked at the agenda pack. There's nothing there. It came on our agenda yesterday. And I know you're busy, Bill, but you're asking for $50,000. I don't have a budget in front of me. I wouldn't do that to almost any department. So that causes me concern. You say it's 250,000, but I don't know what that is other than these kind of.
Understandably so. And we're still putting the budget together. Like it's got to come together in the next 3 days. Part of it is getting like with Aspen Valley Land Trust, who's going to take the conservation easement for that, because they won't give us funds unless there's a conservation easement. They know they're not going to be destroyed anymore, up and be destroyed. So that's 50,000 right there. And things like that, we know we're putting together, but it's really hard right now to get an actual figure on putting the masons and the mix together, because the cement just went up 140% is what I heard. And so we'll put the figures together as best we can on and back up everything that we're putting together with a letter or with an email, as we have to do. And I'll be more than glad to keep you informed all the way through this. And if the letter of commitment comes, I'll definitely have a budget to you as soon as we turn it in on the third night, midnight the 13th.
My view is the money should be there, but should not be dispersed unless Deborah, and we don't need to see the budget. I don't need to be micromanaging them, but the staff has a budget, so they know how the money.
You bet, absolutely.
And I will not repeat what was said here, but I agree with it. I do think these sites should be preserved. This one is worth preserving, and it's very accessible. But I would in addition to a budget, I guess I'd like to see the vision and what the plan is for the site at some point. I would imagine you'll have to submit that with the grant request.
We do. I've got a landscape architect going out Saturday to look at how we can put that into the budget and all. So it's been 2 months of doing, 4 of us doing not much except this. And so it's right up to crunch time, as a lot of these grants are.
Well, thank you. Thanks for
Thank
your
you.
work on this.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I would say I really appreciate this as well. I would agree with Charlie. It's tough for me to allocate public funds to a nonprofit without having that nonprofit. You'll probably hear me say something similar to this and 2 other agenda items from now, without going through and having a full grant application that gets vetted by our financial advisory board. So I can't support it because $50,000 without a budget or a grant application or going through our process that we normally have, I think opens us up to having any nonprofit come and say, well, I got this thing going on. Because we never say no, because everybody does great work. Everybody does great work. And I agree 100% with Steve's motion.
But you're going to vote no for it.
Because of process. I don't think using, last minute, hit our agenda this morning, $50,000 ask is a proper way to spend the public's dollar. But that being said, I do appreciate your motion to match up to with the county. I think that's a great part of the motion. But I'll vote against. Thank you, Bill. I really appreciate it. There's a motion and a second.
Can we clarify let's clarify the motion. I'm trying to make it available.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
The motion was, Councilor
Well, you
Davis.
want me to amend my motion to include your revision?
If you would, yes, I would appreciate
And
it.
so that would be before we allocate those funds, even though we have a letter of support, before
We
we
see a
actually
budget.
fund that we would see a budget and we would see Shelley
Kind of a
Overall.
a plan.
overall plan.
Site plan.
And it would be the plan and budget that I would expect to see that would be part of that grant application, I'm sure.
So be happy stated because we're having trouble with that. Okay, we'll do that.
That's acceptable.
So the motion is to approve up to 50,000. Steve, I'm not, the reason is we had some trouble with the motion last meeting. I'm trying to make our motion clear. The motion, as I understand it, is to approve up to $50,000 equal to what the Fairfield County Commissioners do. And to allow the letter of intent or whatever it is to be signed, but you understand before the money is issued, they will give us the budget for how that's going to be spent and an overall plan for the design.
And it's to Deborah's discretion on how to
Deborah's
fund
discretion
it.
how to do it.
Yes.
All right, and the second set, okay, Ryan, let's call the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman,
Yes.
Counselor Cow,
Yes.
Mayor Godus,
No.
Counselor Hershey,
Yes.
Counselor Wusso,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
6-1.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item on the agenda,
Code revision,
code revision.
code, fixing code, whatever.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Hannah Klossman with Community Development. This should be a fairly quick item, so bear with me. This is consideration of various code text amendments to Title 70, our development code. This is an extension of staff clarifying some areas that need a little tweaking on intention and a few modifications. In your staff report, I've included a spreadsheet that has the 9 code changes for you with the error considerations and also what staff is proposing to correct those. I can go through each one. It'll take about 10 seconds each. But then also staff is obviously recommending approval of these amendments. This did go before Planning and Zoning Commission at their October meeting, and they had unanimous support of the amendments. I've also included some recommended findings for you for approval of the subsequent ordinance 18 of 2021. So the first one that we've got in that sheet is really just a correction and addition of a link in the code in our table of allowed uses to make that a little bit more user-friendly. We're also making an amendment to the specific standards for residential uses, something that is already covered in another section of our code, so we find it redundant. Number 3 is applicability of common open space, so how we apply common open space standards to our development permit list. You'll notice we are adding administrative site and architectural plan approvals, which was not currently listed, and staff believes that was also an error. Number 4 is actually a repeal of section 7040-120. Now it is duplicative of the additional code section 7045 that we added for affordable housing. So that's just taking that section out because we forgot to do that the last time. Number 5. This is actually for our off-street parking alternative. It's giving our director the ability to push one of those applications up to our Planning and Zoning Commission for decision. If she finds that there are extenuating circumstances that she feels P and Z should make that decision on. So we added in language to allow our director to do that. 6 is a small tweak to our minor subdivision applicability. We have quite a few applications that come in that are a subdivision for a few lots, which most of the time can be reviewed at staff level. Our code currently has language that prevents it if there wasn't already a plat, but the process in and of itself creates a plat. So staff does believe that the intent of this for all of those applications, if they are 3 or fewer lots, is to be able to do so at staff level. So that is number 6, adding in that authority. 7 are flexibility and relief procedures. Currently, we don't allow administrative adjustments to come in without a development permit, but staff also believes this was an oversight and we should be able to process those administrative adjustments at staff level if you're turning in a building permit as well. So that is adding in that applicability in 70-60-70. Number 8 is really just a clerical error there of shifting over the check marks and the authority. It just needs to be shifted 2 columns over. And finally, number 9, we are adding a definition of focal point for non-residential and mixed use for clarification of another section of our code. And that is all. So in front of you, we have Ordinance 18 of 2021. Staff and Planning and Zoning Commission are recommending approval with the findings in your packet. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kevin. Questions?
Make a motion.
It's an ordinance, so we need to open it for public comments.
Oh, okay, great.
Anybody from the public like to comment? Ingrid, back to you.
Great. I will then make a motion on planning item 5721, amending municipal code title 070 in consideration of code text amendments to municipal code title 070, including but not exclusive of sections 070030, 070040, 070060, and 070070. I will make a motion to approve with the findings, recommended findings on page 1 and 2 of the staff report, as well as the ordinance 18.
Moved by Councilor Musso, seconded by Councilor, I think, yeah, Kyle? I heard Steph. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Brian, let's call the question.
Counselor Musa,
Yes.
Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
Counselor Hershey,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wellman,
Yes.
Mayor Godus,
Yes.
Counselor Cow.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you for continuing to pull all these technical stuff. I know it's hard, but I appreciate your work.
You'll probably see more. Thank
I'm
you so
sure,
much.
but thank you.
Item number 16, North Mountain Bike Association.
Mayor, councilors, staff, thank you for the opportunity to present. I might need a little bit of tech assistance here. There is a presentation in the packet. Hopefully we can get that up on the screen. But I've got a USB stick if it's not easy to pull it up.
That's easier.
This is easier, okay.
Yeah.
This one here, okay. Yes.
Did you skip item 15?
Did I skip?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's electronic participation. It's only been a couple of years. We can skip a couple of items.
Can we skip 15 altogether?
I'm sorry, I saw ordinances and I got lost. We'll do it after, can we do it after?
We'll do it after.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
If you're ready.
I think we're ready now, if you
Yeah.
guys are willing. All right, my name is Mike Pritchard. I'm the executive director for the Roaring Fork Mountain Bike Association. And I want to, again, say thanks, because some of this will certainly be review, because really I want to give context for what we're building up to here at the end. So what we're really talking about is past, present, and future. And as a reminder, RFMBA has been around since 2008. We became a chapter of the International Mountain Biking Association in 2013. And our mission is to create and sustain the best possible trails. We've been able to do a lot of work here in Glenwood, and we're going to get into that detail here shortly. So IMBA has been around for 30 years. They advocate, build, teach, inspire, and educate. And we're lucky to be associated with them. We run our membership program through them. They have representation for us in DC. I get to travel to DC to work on things like the CORE Act and protecting the Thompson Divide, places that are important for mountain bikers, and of course, important for a lot of people. IMBA has this presentation called Better Living Through Trails that they used to give all around the country, and they last gave it here in Glenwood Springs in 2015. It was well attended by council members, mayor, and many community members, and it really gets to the heart of what the work that we do. And so I'm only going to spend a few seconds on it here, but we could talk for an hour and probably a couple hours about these key issues. You know, single track trails have really great economic impacts, really excellent health benefits for our communities. And we can go into the details of what it takes to create those kind of trail systems. But basically, it's that toolkit that we have been utilizing here in Glenwood Springs and Newcastle and throughout the Roaring Fork Valley. I just want to give additional context to say that we have a challenging place to work. We do have 2 federal land managers, 3 counties, all these cities, towns, and villages. So RFMBA as a nonprofit is fairly spread out, or rather spread thin in what we're trying to achieve. So it is key for us to work closely with these various land managers to achieve our mission. But of course, there are other partners involved as well. And I always like to bring Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers to the top of that list. If RFV had not been around for 25 plus years, we'd probably be doing a lot of the same work that they do. We do have some overlap, but we try to be very purposeful about that. We co-promote and co-organize a lot of our projects during the summer. So what is this mission leading to? It often leads to easier trails, more challenging trails, longer trails. But as I mentioned earlier with the Thompson Divide and other locations, we are trying to protect and expand experiences in the backcountry in this mountain environment. So how do we get new trails? There's a couple key methods. We can build them with volunteers. That's how we've done it for many years. But over recent years, we have utilized professional trail contractors who've become very expert in providing modern solutions for bike optimized trails, for planning experiences that really think about all the users who might get out onto these systems. At the end of the day, we want to see more people on trails because we do believe that leads to these healthier and more vibrant communities. Volunteer trail work is a key aspect, and I've mentioned RFOV, but we do coordinate our own works here in Glenwood. We're remiss in not having had a South Canyon cleanup for a couple of years due to the pandemic. So we're looking forward to conducting volunteer work in the canyon come this spring. The Trail Agent program is also a volunteer program, but it recognizes that people are very busy in their personal lives with work, with family, with wanting to go for a bike ride or a hike or whatever it might be. So we never see quite as many volunteers out at the organized, scheduled volunteer days, evenings, Saturdays, than you might expect. So the Trail Agent program empowers people to go out and volunteer on their own time. It ensures that they are doing it safely, properly, they're reporting their hours so that we can leverage that work. And at this point, there's a lot of opportunity to expand this program, but we're at about 500 hours a year at this point. Our seasonal trail crew just finished its 4th season. We had up to 7 people this year on the ground. A lot of our work was doing deferred maintenance on the National Forest land, but a lot of the hours were put right here on Glenwood Springs trails in South Canyon and on Red Mountain with the Grandstaff Trail in particular. So it's been great to get people trained up, equipped, and these people put in hard, long days, 10 hours usually, out on the trails each day. A lot of our work is in this space of advocacy, of planning, and then all the project management that goes along with implementing the plans. So we've recognized over the years that this is how we're going to make change happen, working with the professionals, working through the process, working with each of the land managers. We always get questions, how do we fund a lot of our work? It starts with individual members, family memberships. It grows into the business partners. And then we're fortunate to find larger direct donations on occasion, or just random PayPal gifts coming into our account. But foundation grants make a big difference. And then these local, state, and federal grants make a big difference too. But in this last category, this is kind of what we're going to get into tonight. Right? Sometimes the grants we're talking about or the funding we're talking about is not passing through our organization, but it is the advocacy work that we're pushing for so that the monies can be spent. So for instance, in the Upper Valley, we have strong trails and open space programs that are often tax funded. So we go and we speak and we push and we ask and we work with them, and good trails are evolving in those systems. But we're not seeing that money pass through our coffers. We're not actually having to expend the funds at the end of the day, but we're accomplishing our mission. So here in Glenwood, we've had a really good story over the last 6 years. And the reason for that is where we started. We started with a concept trails plan that looked at all of the public lands surrounding the city of Glenwood Springs. What we found, of course, was that we have national forest, we have BLM, but we have more city lands than we expected when we started out. And so this little map here is showing the 3 areas of focus, and we have been able to make progress on each of these areas over the past number of years. So we're going to take a look at those right now. Right here, closer to downtown, just to the west, we have Red Mountain, where the cross is lit up at this time of year. And we also have the Wolfson Trails over by the community center. So the Wolfson Trails was a whole lot of hard work by volunteers and some very rocky terrain. I know those trails are well loved, but they're also quite challenging for people starting out in the sport or the pursuit of mountain biking. So some of the more modern trails are now a different character from those original hand-built trails. Our big focus on Red Mountain was this trail improvement project. And the result was what we now look at as being 3 main trails. Red Mountain Road, also known as the Jeannie Goulet Trail, where she used to train and race, is the way that most people will go up by bike. And we have lots of side-by-side hikers enjoying that gated motorized road. And then we have the Cross Trail that's been there for decades. It's a fall line trail that's got some pretty deep ruts in places, but we can't keep people off of it. So we decided to sign it, name it, and maintain it. And then lastly, we now have the Grandstaff Trail, which is an optimized bike trail that includes some of the original sections of the road that used to go up to the top. That trail has seen a whole lot of positive reviews and feedback. It's really changed the lives of a lot of locals. Every time I'm up there, I'm seeing the high school race team going up and down. I know people who are riding that trail literally every day as if it's their personal religion of sorts. And so it's really been a trail that has been changing the community very quickly from the mountain bikers' point of view. When we move further west to this A area, that's where we see South Canyon and those brown polygons. And so you see that that area is much larger city parcels than some people imagine. What did we do in South Canyon? Unfortunately, we didn't have yet the management plan or the master plan that's now finally being discussed. This was an issue that we brought up at the time, and it seemed like it might be 10 or 20 years before the city ever came around to starting to make some changes. So we're very accepting of the process that might be moving forward here over the coming months and years. In the meantime, we worked with professionals. We worked with a lot of different funders in order to create the South Canyon Trail Plan and implement phase 1. Another very favorite, very popular place for people to go on just about a daily basis if they live close enough. So well-regarded trails, lots of positive feedback that's going on there. But we do have future trails that have been designed, and we're just waiting for funding at this point. And now over to the east of downtown, we have Lookout Mountain. And this is the last area in the concept trails plan. And so last year, we embarked upon a planning process that looked at the closest portion to the downtown area, even though that original planning area went all the way to the east, to the far east end of the Forest Hollow Trail. The land we're looking at here is a combination of city land and BLM land. And that's why I'm pleased to see that the consent agenda was passed, and that included the MOU between the city and the BLM that sets the framework for how these 2 governmental agencies can partner and agree to work. It's a non-binding resolution or a memorandum, but it does set the stage for us to partner in the future of this area. And why is that? And the reason is the BLM has a national recreation strategy, and it's called Connecting with Communities. So communities like Glenwood, Newcastle, Rifle, and many others that are adjacent to these federal lands where the BLM generally is stretched thin and cannot manage it. This opens up the opportunity for these local municipalities to take advantage of that land and utilize it when appropriate. So this planning is looking at future trails, but also looking at some existing trails over near the Dock Holiday area where we could be able to formalize those trails, sign them, utilize them for hikers and others. So this is not just a mountain biking trail plan. We always try to think about all of the users. Primarily, we're talking foot and bikes in the city. And we're excited about what could happen. But the next steps really are to start working with professionals. We need to do the cultural studies and the botanical studies before we can go into an EA process with the BLM. So we're looking forward to moving that forward next year. But again, funding comes into play before we keep proceeding. I'm going to skip over this because this slide is outdated, unfortunately, but it's worth mentioning really briefly that we do have a gold level ride center in this area. So mountain bikers are realizing that this is a place to come and visit. We haven't utilized this ride center status quite as much as we intended as the pandemic has intervened. And then there's a lot of questions about how much we actually want to invite the public or the world to come out to our trails. But obviously we have plenty of people even in this room who would love to see tourism increase, right? We do want to see more visitation. But the question is, are we ready for it? So that's a topic for another day. So I want to say again, thank you for adopting the MOU. And now I want to talk about the main request here. We'd really love to see the city continue to invest as they have in these recent years in the past in the soft surface trails world. Investing means planning, maintaining, and building. And we've done that sporadically. We used to do it with just mostly volunteers. And then we've had this brief era over the last 5 years or so where we've made some really great progress in a professional manner. And I think that we've really changed people's attitudes about what trails can be like in the city of Glenwood Springs. But our request is to continue. In a perfect world, we would have a line item in the budget on an annual basis that supports trails. We probably would have even more staff in the Parks Department in order to be able to address this internally. But luckily, we are here to help. So when we are asking for the city to continue funding trails, I'm also saying that we are going to bring matching funds to the table. So our suggestion today is to determine how we can find about $50,000, ideally per year, but let's focus on 2022 first. How can we find $50,000 and dedicate it towards this soft surface trails category? What I don't want for us to have to decide tonight is what exactly that money would be spent on. I think that conversation is better had with Brian and his team at the Parks Department, because I think it is a combination of things. I think we need to hire ologists to look at Lookout Mountain. I think we need to determine which of the trail projects over at South Canyon we can proceed with in the near term versus some might be better off in future years when we develop parking in a different style at South Canyon. So my request here again to finally reiterate it is to find funding that goes towards these existing city assets and to continue investing so we can evolve it for creating a better system than we have today. I think there's a lot of benefits that will come of that. And so I look forward to opening this up to questions, but I do have two Parks and Rec Commission members here that I know would like to say a few words. So Mayor Godis, I would leave it to you whether questions are appropriate or if we should hear from
Well, typically we do
commission members
questions.
since we met last night.
Yeah, we'll do questions first and then we'll turn it over for people from the audience who want to give public comment. So
Sounds great.
anybody from council? For questions, go ahead. I have Ingrid's flashing still, did that clear you from last time?
You didn't clear.
Okay.
Would you clear me? Am I flashing?
Dang it, Mike, look what you did to me.
My flashing?
Counselor Stepp, go ahead. No, you're not, Tony.
Okay, good.
Mike, I thank you for presenting and thank you for all the work that you've done. how it works. You've spoken to, this isn't just mountain biking trails, this is also other recreationalists, mostly hiking. Can you kind of give me some kind of split on when you go in, say, what you did on Red Mountain or what you've done in South Canyon? How much of that was hiking trails? How much of that was biking? What took the priority?
Yeah, so, it's fair to say I wear a bias on my sleeve, but we do look at it from the outset that we want to plan systems holistically. Because the last thing that I want to hear, or anybody wants to hear, is that we've got conflicts between users. So one of the ways we achieve that is by making sure that we have largely directional trails, or as much as possible directional trails. Usually doesn't work out exactly like that. So for instance, it's ideal to have trails that are two-way for bikes or mostly just climbing for bikes. And that's good for two-way runners and hikers. And then a trail for downhill biking only. And that way, if the bikes are all going circulating in one direction, then the hikers are only encountering bikes going in the slower uphill direction. And that's certainly been the focus on the Lookout Mountain trail planning. In addition, when we have opportunities like fall line trails, especially ones that are existing, those are ideal for hikers who are looking for a cardio workout. And so we build those into the plan as well. I would say it's fair to think that over at South Canyon, it's mostly two-way trails except for the Lightning Bug Trail, which is a downhill only trail. I know that there's probably some complaints, but I haven't heard of actual crashes, let's say, between users. So as long as hikers are staying off of the downhill bike only trail, we should be relatively safe in that instance.
And it sounds like you are looking at Lookout Mountain, kind of a little more environmental assessment kind of work before you even start there. What was done with the South Canyon area? Did you kind of go through that? Did you work with CPW? What was?
Yeah, so first step is always CPW. We've done the same thing with Lookout Mountain to find out, what are the critical issues? Are there critical winter habitat that we need to stay out of, in which case we can implement closure seasons like we do have over on the Coal Camp Trail in South Canyon. Over on Lookout Mountain, those discussions have essentially arrived at the fact that we're just too close to Glenwood. There's not really wildlife on this side of Lookout Mountain. But when you go past the communication towers, that is where they are concerned about the winter habitat. And so we've already discussed that there would be gates and signage and education as a component of any trails that would go in the future.
And do you get support from Garfield County on the work that you guys are doing?
We have, for these projects we've been talking about consistently, received support. So when we talk about securing matching funds, they are one of the likely partners that we can go and request that we have successfully requested funds from in the past. We have foundations that would be eager as well to support. And we actually have begun to split up our funds. We bring in funds that are just general funds and we have our discretion. But some are dedicated to certain areas. Newcastle is very strong in this manner. We have a lot of business sponsors that are specific to Newcastle. In Glenwood, we do have a fund that's about $15,000 that we're waiting to spend. So if we're saying that we're trying to match your $50,000 that we're requesting, we're already part of the way there. And in fact, I would think that if we've got a budget of $120,000 or $130,000 for a project, we'll go and find those additional funds. So it's more a question of, will the city commit to supporting trails in the future? And I and RFMBA do not get that final decision on how the funds should be spent. It really should be Brian and his team. We'll try to sway him. But really, there are many projects that you might choose to expend the funds on. You might decide that the paths over at Wolfson require a real investment because they're eroding. They weren't properly constructed. The cinder paths, I mean. So there's any number of paths. What I do want to differentiate is between the paved system, which is wonderful, and we want to see those paths. We want to connect all the way to South Canyon with a Lova path one day. But our basic contention is that soft surface trails are, in comparison, fairly affordable. It is something that's achievable, and the return on the investment arguably is quite high. We have been asked, how do we prove out that return on investment? And that is something that we can attempt to do as time goes on. But I think the basic argument is that if we have this healthier living going on here, it not only attracts, it lowers our hospital bills, but it, at the end of the day, attracts a different type of society. So, as an example, in Carbondale, they now have Revel bikes and Y cycles. They moved from Salt Lake City for that quality of life to be right next to the trails, so that they could attract top talent who wanted to work for their business. So the same exact thing can happen in Glenwood, and it doesn't have to be an outdoor industry. It could be a law firm that wants to attract somebody by saying, oh, and we've got the rivers and we've got the trails. Don't put them on the rivers. No more lawyers.
My last question is to Brian, if you don't mind. Brian, can you tell me how this relationship has worked with RFMBA?
Yeah, we've had a fairly close relationship with RFMBA as we've looked at the trail systems. When we planned and finished out implementation of the Red Mountain Trail system, the Grandstaff Trail. We took a little more of a project management role with the South Canyon trails, especially as we looked at some of those sensitive areas and some of the user conflicts issues and trying to work through that. The city has committed funding in the past. I think we had put in 60,000 for Red Mountain and 90,000 for South Canyon. Those were one-time contributions to those projects. This is a little bit of a different ongoing task.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Let's go.
Oh, Brian, I might have a couple more questions for you if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And I guess I was wondering, is there a staff recommendation on this ask or this kind of partnership? What's being proposed?
There is not. This was requested by council to put on. Okay, asking for a recommendation. My recommendation would be to take these one at a time and not to make a forward commitment, right? Make them project-based. Make sure you want the trail specifically that they're going after rather than, yes, $50,000 every year.
Okay, and well, that leads into my other question. I'm wondering how does the city have a master plan or a vision for trails, on the city lands and surrounding the city? And is that part of like our Parks and Rec master plan, or is that something that maybe should be taken up with Parks and Rec Commission?
Yeah, we have a very old trails plan.
Okay.
It's not part of our Parks and Rec master plan. It would be included with an updated one. The last update was 2016, which was just an update to the 2006 master plan. So we're really in need of a revitalization of that.
Okay.
This is not quite the time to jump into that yet.
Right.
But RFMBA does have a trails plan, an area trails plan.
Right. And I
so
did see that. Yeah. Okay. In here. And I appreciate that. I really, some of the new trails look exciting and everything, especially, I live on the Lookout Mountainside, so trails over there I think would be great. Interesting, some of the layout and things, and the trail on Red Mountain has been wonderful, and the Wolfstone Trail. So I think it's been successful, and I would like to see, though, I'm concerned about just committing to a partnership with an organization that's mainly focused on mountain biking trails. I think hiking is very big here too, so I kind of want to see equal weight given to those and a good kind of consideration of how they work together. I'm also, I didn't see a lot in here on how we do a public process. So if we do want to consider new trails, for example, going into a new area or going into, connecting over to South Canyon or expanding in South Canyon, or I want to see a good public process where you hear from the people that are in those neighborhoods or trail users, if we can figure out a way to reach out to them. So that, do we do that? I did not see that, you know, as a user of the Red Mountain Trails, I didn't see that that was done at that time when Grandstaff Trail. Okay, let's see.
So the question is, would we do that?
Would we do
Okay.
that?
We did have public process during the Red Mountain and the South Canyon. So we had public
Okay.
surveys, we had public meetings.
And I guess that's
But-
my question too.
But it
is-
wasn't as rigorous as you might have hoped perhaps.
Right, and when we do run that, I guess my question would be, would the city run that? It would seem more appropriate that the city would run.
And we've done both. We vet all these trail system projects through Parks and Recreation as well. We have pretty extensive, and I think it's gotten better as we went along. Red Mountain, you know, we had a few meetings on it with public comment, with Parks and Recreation Commission. With South Canyon, it was extensive.
Right.
Work with the South Canyon Coalition.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Brian, where would 50,000 fit into your Parks and Recreation budget for 2022 if we approve this?
We have appropriated everything for 2022. We run lean. I don't have 50,000 sitting around.
Okay, so you don't, I mean, you wouldn't prioritize this in above any other projects that you currently have?
You know, our FMBA is still at a planning stage for a lot of this, and we are still trying to catch up from pushing back capital projects and some of our deferred maintenance. So it's not as high a priority for us as some of the things that we have.
But the Parks and Rec Commission did vote to approve this.
They,
I can have to address this when I talk.
Okay, I'll say that question. Mike, is there a reason you haven't applied in the past for the Financial Advisory Board grant process?
No good reason. We've been on a bit of a hiatus, trying to give patience during this pandemic, you know, similar to what Bill was mentioning. You know, last year and even earlier this year was not the time to go and start asking. But as you've been hearing me say, I do think that within the realm of the Parks and Recreation Department, these trails are under the purview. And so the question remains, why is there not any funding whatsoever? I know there is 5,000 a year that goes to RFOV, and we want to see that continue because RFOV leverages those funds. That turns into at least a couple of volunteer projects each year on city trails, if not adjacent to city trails. So that's really worthwhile. But why is there not an actual line item that goes towards investing in the trail system as it stands is my open question essentially. And now, one way to go about this would be for us to
That's
go
okay.
project
That's
specific
fine.
and go for grants.
The quick question was, is there a reason you hadn't applied for financial advisory board?
No good reason.
Okay. Would you, a grant application is going to be open in 60 days in February. Would you consider applying at that point for those funds?
We can certainly do that. The way that we've accomplished these projects in the past is that council has been supportive of them. The council has directed staff to put funds towards the projects. At that point, we're able to go and secure funds. I just frankly have a little bit of difficulty going and asking other people, other funding entities to fund city projects when the city does not seem to be supportive of them from the outset. I think we can go and build that support to your point by securing a grant on a project basis. We're just trying to look at it a little bit more widely. And I guess the method we've used elsewhere, there's just been a little more trust on the value of soft surface trails. For instance, in Newcastle, let's say we're securing about that amount each year and
Sure.
pushing it
So
forward.
is there, sorry, I'm trying to move this along a little bit. Do you have any budget? Do you have a grant application that we could look at? Do you have financials? Do you have a project budget? I mean, these are all things that typically when you go through the financial advisory board process, they would get to parlay that with other things. Do you have anything
We
Other
could
than just
we
an
could
ask.
pretty readily put together two asks or two different projects, one associated with the Alpine Slide Trail at the South Canyon, and then one associated with pushing the planning forward for Lookout Mountain.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Council Wusso.
I think I need clarification here and that what I'm hearing is that you guys raise the funds, but then our Parks Department would help allocate and dictate, no.
I think the request is for there to be a line item on an annual basis,
Yeah.
$50,000
Yeah.
city funds
Mhm.
for soft service trails.
Okay,
Not that
that's,
they would raise the money. They would,
No,
they would
but-
use that, they would leverage that money potentially for other projects. But the essential ask is a $50,000 line item for our FMBA for soft trails.
and then, but Parks and Rec, and I mean, Brian just stood up and said that they have a lot of oversight on how the money gets spent. So that, does that satisfy any concerns about like line items and how money is allocated?
No, I just,
Okay.
it's more, again, the process. I'm just
Oh, okay.
questioning,
You're questioning the ask.
I'm questioning
Mhm.
timing and process of the ask with,
Great.
you know, that's more of a question, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you. Public, go ahead, James. That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
First,
That wasn't on
the
purpose.
first thing, I have a number of things. I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission. What's that?
Say your name and address.
Oh,
Thank you.
James Fosnot, 926 Palmer Avenue. And also a member of the Parks and Rec Commission. And I'm here in both capacities, first on Parks and Rec and then individually, because those aren't always the same. I wanted to address one thing. So from what I understood from Mike's presentation to us last night and what we understood is this is not an ask for RFMBA to get the money. It's an ask for you to allocate the money so that they can use it for the benefit of the town. And so if you have $50,000, you're dedicating those funds. You're saying that this is an important function or amenity that we can offer, not just to tourists, but to the people who live and reside in the town of Glenwood. We want to dedicate that to trails. If he has that line item, then he can go out to the heirs of Walmart or GoCo or anybody who's given up money for trails. And there are people out there because they see them as important, but he can say, Glenwood cares. So that's what he's asking for. That's how I understood it. And if I'm mistaken about that, ask him about that. I disagree with staff and Deborah's recommendation. I think it's critical for you to say that this is important and it go into the budget every year. That way people can say, this is a town that takes trails seriously. I see Rifle doing that. I see Newcastle doing that. I see them building trails and I go bike there instead of biking here. The other thing that we're saying is, if we want all of our community, Latinos, young kids, to get involved in exercising and being outdoors, we've got to build more trails. Because right now, the trails in Glenwood go up and down. We need trails that go around. And RFMBA can help develop that. And if you put money into the trails, we can do that, that broadens this for everybody in the community. Councilor Stepp, you said hiking versus biking. And as we look at it from Parks and Recs Commission, putting more mountain biking trails takes some of the pressure off of the hiking trails that are out there. So putting a dedicated biking trail benefits hiking trails. Putting in a trail that's available to both benefits hiking trails. So more trails equals more availability for everyone, less traffic. I don't want to come barreling down South Canyon and slam into a hiker. We have certain places like the lightning bug trail that is, they put signs up there. Funding that you guys can provide on a line item basis every year allows us to put up better signs, allows us to put up signs for the Hispanic community, put stuff up in Spanish. I want to see more Latinos on the trail. I don't see that many. I think it would be important for you guys to encourage them to get out there to do that. Concern about who's in charge here. Is it them? Is it the city? It's the city. The city needs to take an active role in trails. I've been on Parks and Rec for almost 4 years now. Thank you for appointing me to that, reappointing me to that. It's important to me because I think it's one of the biggest amenities. I've come and spoke to you guys before about this. I would really like to see us working to establish something that stays permanent. Takes existing trails, improves them, creates new trails.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, it's been 3 minutes. Other people would like to speak. We have other issues on the agenda. We spent an inordinate amount of time on this. Mr. Fosstein, you're done. It's been 3 minutes. It's not fair to everyone else. Mr.
Can I
Mayor.
just comment one thing?
No.
Okay.
It's public comment. We're not going to respond. Thank you, James. Appreciate it.
Thank you, James.
Can I just say Parks and Rec recommends approving what they're asking.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Christina Pearson. I live at 101 Polo Road. I am an alternate member on Parks and Recreation Commission as of last month. I think James already spoke to a lot of what I would like to say, but he also spoke to what the Parks and Recreation Commission discussed. So I'm here to talk about what I, as a personal independent, as a private citizen, think. I am an avid mountain biker. It is my main hobby. It's what I do most days of the week. And I have to say, I've been very impressed with what RFMBA has done in the Valley and specifically here in Glenwood Springs. I'm one of those people you find on Red Mountain most days of the week. I love it. They do great work. It makes my quality of life a lot better. I also happen to be one of those people who travels and does most of their vacation around mountain biking. And so I go to places that could be like what Glenwood Springs could be. And those are the places that take me. It's places like Crested Butte has been, Moab, Sedona. There's places in Idaho I've traveled to in California. And we have the terrain here to be able to be one of those places. So not only do I want to benefit from what RFMBA could do in town, to have trails I could go to and enjoy. I think that there is also a possibility for that to be a tourist attraction as well. I'll also say that I have been always enjoying seeing other people out there, and it's really great to see all of the hikers out. It's been nice that there is because I used to bike here before and I would ride on the cross trail, which is terrifying and I don't recommend it. Before Grandstaff was there, it's been so nice to have a separate trail from hikers, to see the hikers that are all like, going up straight up cross trail, which is incredibly difficult and it just takes your breath away. And then to be able to come down on a bike and not have that user conflict is pretty great. And that's something that RFMBA works to do. So I just want to say I strongly support their work and I hope that council will as well.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Ramshaw. I know you're from the hat.
Craig Amichal, 163 County Road 132. I was going to talk about some other stuff, but because of what I'm hearing, I'll switch it up a little bit. If there's a line item in the parks for maintenance of existing trail, that you could come up with some reasonable amount, I don't think people would have much of a problem with that. But this request is lumped in with 3 new trails. And there's a lot of people in this community think that we already have a ton of mountain bike trails and a lot of aggressive single track trails. I've walked every one of them. I've biked every one of them. I've had numerous conflicts on the trail. Mike is an expert mountain biker. He doesn't have any problems. There's numerous people out there. They're not quite as courteous. They don't want hikers on these trails for a general purpose. And so, and most of what we do anymore, just because I'm getting up and old, is hike, so I don't want to be run over by a bike out there. So let's switch this up to West Glenwood because a lot of people also commute to work. I think it's more important that we focus on connectivity of our neighborhoods. And I watched almost every meeting on the horse pasture. And I heard a lot of the councilmen, I heard a lot of the developers talk about how walkable West Glenwood is. And I totally disagree. I live there. I get out on my house, I walk right down the middle of Mitchell Creek. I walk right down the middle of Highway 6. I walk right down the middle of Devereaux Road. Melray Road, no sidewalks, no bike trails. Devereaux Road, 0.7 miles, no connectivity. Mitchell Creek, 1.5 miles, no connectivity. The Lova Trail is dead-ended over at the West Glenwood Sewer Plant. when they should just put a pedestrian overpass right by Storm King Trailer Park. So you want to talk about connectivity, go ahead and take a walk on Highway 6 during rush hour traffic. And then I'd like to hear how connected we are out in West Glenwood. So I'd like great leadership, and especially from people in West Glenwood, to come up and go meet with Garfield County, go meet with the state of Colorado, and let's start coming up with solutions. Because exit 114 is an absolute disaster. And you do not want to cross that path on a bike or by walking during rush hour traffic. So you absolutely need a pedestrian overpass right there at exit 114. And so I think we should put more focus on that. And then as far as maintaining these trails, they're fabulous trails. They really are. And they're built to be fabulous trails for fabulous mountain bikers. So I have no problem maintaining them. But as far as lumping this in with new trails, each of those new trails, we need major discussions on from all parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Anybody else from the public like to speak on this? All right, I'll bring it back to council for comments and our motion. Councilor Stepp.
Like to.
Yes, ma'am.
There are a couple of people on Zoom.
Oh, okay, that's great. I'm sorry.
That's
We're-
fine.
Just wait a second. Go ahead.
The first one is Jennifer. I'm gonna allow you to speak.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Jennifer who?
Hi, my name's Jennifer Vanian. I live at 1016 Minter Avenue in Glenwood. I am anticipating city officials and council will share the thoughts and suggestions of the study done by Mike Hughes on South Canyon. I'd like to know if his recommendation was to award each representative group money for the achievement of their goals. If so, I congratulate the mountain bike community and club for being the first in line. And please look forward to an upcoming presentation by the South Canyon Coalition. We have numerous goals and working solutions for many of the pressing needs of South Canyon. We want to complete the comprehensive plan for the canyon. We want that to include hiking trails and horseback trails, appropriate signage, safety, parking, shared aspects, historical usage, long-term animal husbandry, environmental responsibility of the canyon. We have worked hard and diligently and are happy to be awarded the respect and support the mountain bike community has received from the city. We look forward to your equal treatment and cooperation with our robust group. Having said all that, I feel personally the city would be well served to start paying careful attention to long-term goals of the landfill. Should be top priority over any and all groups being awarded monies, including our own South Canyon Coalition, but more so the mountain biking community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes,
So thank you.
thank you.
Next is Ty Richardson.
Mr. Richardson. Can you hear us? Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you for hearing me. Ty Richardson, 3135 134 Road. Actually, I was a little blindsided by Mr. Pritchard's request to put forward more trail development up Lookout Mountain. He was asked specifically by the Division of Wildlife not to do this. In a CPW letter addressed directly to Mr. Pritchard, he was asked not to pursue further trail expansion on Lookout Mountain. The leading Western Slope wildlife expert from the CPW asked Mike not to do this. Why? Well, according to the DOW, it will further fragment and compress the wildlife habitat in this incredible area. And when new trails go into these wildlife sensitive habitats, the compounding negative effects are mostly irreversible. And lastly, the CPW had concerns about trails entering the Lookout Mountain elk production areas. Production areas are for elk calving seasons, which runs from May 15th to June 15th. Wildlife conservationists recognizes new trail development by mechanized recreationists are highly disruptive to the integrity of any ecological system. Mountain biking has quickly become the #1 extraction industry in Colorado. Extraction means taking something out of an ecosystem and pushing the system to further degradation. Let me say that one more time. Mountain biking has quickly become the #1 extraction industry in Colorado. This is according to the CNHP. The Colorado Natural Heritage Program is the assembled specialist from Colorado State University that performed the ecological studies right here on the Glenwood Springs Quarry. According to the Wyoming Department of Wildlife, for every 1 mile of new mountain bike trail built in elk-sensitive areas, which the upper part of Lookout Mountain is, we lose 640 acres of valuable elk calving area. The proposal set before you is a single-use endeavor for a single-user group to push forward a single activity to the detriment of Lookout Mountain wildlife. Let's not become another Eagle County, where in places they have lost over 95% of their elk population and over 70% of their deer population from over-recreation. It's not sound long-term planning. Please reconsider the MOU with the BLM, as this document, along with the proposal the RFMBA has set before you, both violate the spirit of the original Glenwood Springs Conceptual Trail Plan set forward by the CPW. Let's remember the state of Colorado is #2 for mountain biking, 5,136 miles. I think we have enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Anybody else? No, okay. Back to you, Councilor Stepp.
You know, I appreciate.
Historically, do not allow the applicant to comment on any of the.
Well, the city's the applicant.
Okay, okay, great.
This is the land use.
Great, thank you. Just double checking.
It's not an applicant.
So listening to the comments, I really do appreciate finding the balance on what our needs are here in the city and what to apply funding to. But since I've been on this council, I've been involved in a number of discussions on, you know, our economic development, our rural economy. And as I mentioned earlier tonight, sitting in on a year and a half of meetings, I'm sorry, a half a year of meetings with the group with the recreation economy for rural communities, that we had a number of meetings on what do we do to increase our vibrancy and engagement with our community, and making this a place that people want to be at, making it a place that people who are here can thrive at. And one of the actions out of that, action 5.3, was to expand and connect our bike trails, walkways, and other non-car infrastructure, continue to enhance pedestrian experiences in town with engaging places to walk. And there were a number of other points throughout this meeting that I sat through that it was like, you know, trails are important to an economy and on the Western Slope. So I like this idea of finding a way to find some amount of money to put into a line item every year in our budget that we are looking at soft trails and how to increase that expansion here in our area. I think it's really important to us, whether they're used as hiking, which I do, whether they're used as biking, which I do, whether they're used for a nature walk. I just feel like our people in this community want to be outside and enjoying the outdoors. And I think it's a great positive endeavor for us to look at that. Is it 50,000? Is it 25,000? I would leave that to the discretion of the Parks and Rec department and our financial department, but I do think it's something that we should consider as a line item every year in our budget, as this is important to us. It's important to our community. It's important to our visitors. If we look at this line item, like I said, I would like it under the Parks and Rec department. But I really do have to point out that having these kind of partnerships in town, where somebody can take something that we're doing at a city level and find funding to match against it to bring again to our city coffers, makes a big difference. We want to find those, sometimes that's an access that we can't do directly. And why not take advantage of these kind of opportunities? So I'd like to propose that we do have the MOU that we approved earlier today with the BLM, but I'd like to propose that we ask our staff to look at a budget item addition. If it can't be done in 2022, but to at least consider that for our future years, to 2023, 2024, where it's a consistent line item in the Parks and Rec budget to have a trails
line item in that budget every year. I would like the rest of the council to consider that. So I make that a motion that we look at that for future budget agendas, and if we could possibly add it to 2022 when we're looking at supplements, that would be great as well.
I just wanted to add, we do have $50,000 every year in A&I for trail maintenance. So that's already there. If you guys want us to put an additional 50,000 for new trails or something else, I just wanted you to have that information. So,
okay.
Because if you pass it like that, I would say we already have that. So
Well,
I
Are we doing that?
Sorry, real quick.
Second.
Good motion.
There's a motion
It
on the
doesn't have a
table.
second yet, so.
I know.
I
We
wasn't-
have
have
to
to
talk
ask.
about that.
I wasn't clear on the motion, sorry.
So the motion is to look at our future of adding that as a line item to our Parks and Rec department to have a budget amount in the Parks and Rec department budget for soft
Are
trails
you
and
asking
trail
to
maintenance.
assign that to the Parks and Rec Commission to come back with a recommendation? I could support that.
I would do that.
Have a second, Shelley?
That's a second if we're, yes.
Been moved by Counselor Stepp, seconded by Counselor Cop.
There's
A
a lot of comments.
lot of comments. Counselor Pickleman.
So generally, what Paul set us up, I would probably agree with. We ought to look at it. Is this something that is a budget priority? Every year we look at budget priorities as a council. We start that process somewhere in June, if I remember correctly, May or June, we talk about budget priorities. I think Mike his concept is that this is something that should be a budget priority because that gives us as an image of the city as being a mountain biking community. So I think we need to have that discussion. Do we want that as our image? Whether some of us want it, the public want that, it says that part of our image is to be the mountain bike community, which then delves into a budget priority. I'm not going to support this motion, but I certainly would encourage Mike, one, if you want to apply for an FAB grant, because that is a grant process for nonprofits to come to the city. We have 100,000 roughly per year set aside for various nonprofits. It's a place to look for funding. Actually comes right to your group, and to then come back to us as part of the budgeting process next year. I talked to Mike just last night at the Parks meeting about this, and there were some problems because he was trying to get in front of us, but you get delayed several times because of a number of factors. And so I'm not trying to blame you, but I think it's too late to put in the budget for 2022 because I think place that I heard it could come from was reserves, and I just can't support that. So for being something to be considered future years. Thank you.
And that's what I think the motion was. Just to clarify.
Sound like it had to be in there, but I'm not going to say it has to be there.
No, I said to consider for 2022 if it came in supplemental, but definitely look at it for 2023.
I think Counselor Hershey.
Thank you. I think consider is something that we do on all these things. Any special group could come before us anytime. Mountain bikers, hikers, swimmers, skiers, snowboarders, skateboarders. But the gentleman in the back came before us and said he's having trouble walking around town. And you know, my position on infrastructure, and I think that's where our focus needs to be. I think this is a great idea. I think we should think about it, but I can't support this motion either. Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor Hershey. Counselor Cop.
That's me. I'm just putting some notes down. As I indicated in some of my questions, I think it's really important that we get a trails plan updated. I'm not interested in funding any particular group. I appreciate the plans that you guys are bringing forward, and you've done some great mountain bike trails, but I also appreciate the comments from Mr. Amishaw and others online that, you know, we do need to be very aware of expanding trails into wildlife areas. And I'm really sensitive to that up in South Canyon, sensitive to that whole concept of bringing a trail from Red Mountain over to South Canyon is not even on the table for me, just because of the impacts into, okay. But that's another one that's been proposed. And I think sensitivities on Lookout Mountain, I'm not as aware of, but if there are letters and recommendations from CPW or others, that's why I'm all about process here. If we're going to expand trails into a new area, whether it's on city land or whether it's on BLM, if it's outside of our urban defined boundary, I want to see a really due process on that, including impacts to wildlife, impacts to debris flow, impacts to anything that may be impacted by going in and constructing new trails and bringing users into a place that's typically been wild and more untouched. I also want to see a balance between all types of trail users, biking and hiking. I want to see input from neighborhoods. So I don't want to bog down the process necessarily, but we need public process and we need to have a plan that we're working towards, not just, going with kind of the latest idea brought forward of let's put a new trail here. You guys have a great plan, but how does that fit in with the city plan? That's what I'm looking for. And I appreciate Parks and Rec Commission being here and speaking on this issue because just where we live, people love trails. They love to get out there. But again, we need a balance between, is it mountain biking or is it hiking? Let's see. I think that's all I have. The other one to talk about is this funding. From what I understand on your motion, Paul, I'm going to support that motion because I'm hearing that that's a recommendation that Parks and Rec take a look at this with staff and come back to us with a recommendation, not necessarily for the 2022 budget, but for future. How do we fit this into the budget? Where does it come from? Does it come from possibly tourism funding? I don't know that we can make this money magically appear in the Parks and Rec budget because they have a lot to tackle with all the parks they're maintaining in the city. We also have issues at trailheads, and I live right at the base of a trailhead. I hike Red Mountain all the time. We don't have enough parking at trailheads. We have no restrooms. I have to say, I walked out of my front door of my house the other day, and there was a little boy of about 5 just urinating next to his family's car. And I appreciated that. They are probably tourists and they got done hiking the trail and there's nowhere to go. So I think we need to be able to look at our trailheads and say, we need to provide infrastructure and facilities for people when we're bringing a lot of tourists to town and users that want to use our trails. They need to have facilities that accommodate those trail users. So I'd like to have recommendations on all of that from Parks and Rec and staff. And I will support the motion with those caveats.
Councilor Davis.
So many caveats at this point. It's hard to even speak to wrap that all together. But of course, I very much support everything that our FMBA does and has always done. I've sat on this council for, I don't know, it seems like forever. And the first time you ever came to us, we supported your project. I think these projects are incredibly important. These trails do not maintain themselves. You have to have funding to maintain these trails every year. I very much support having that, and maybe it should be a line item in the Park and Rec budget. And but the difficult part of that is some of these trails are in the city, some of them are not. I mean, a lot of them come in and out of the city. So how does the Park and Rec department maintain trails that are out of the city of Glenwood Springs? I don't know how that works. The reason I think this is so important is for the youth of Glenwood. How do we keep our kids off drugs? And Glenwood has really not done a good job at all in providing activities for our kids. We have like the states, we had the state's first skate park, and now it's the state's sorriest skate park. Where all these communities I go to, I see fabulous skate parks and they're full of kids hanging out after school. My grandson was in the Dirt Demons here at Glenwood High, which is the mountain biking club. And I followed him around the state of Colorado to go to different events, and where there were thousands of kids from all over the state that would go to these events. And that's very healthy. It's a healthy activity for these kids to do. Those kids are not on drugs. Those kids are not the kids that I see hanging out down on the river below the high school. They've got other things to do, and I think it's important for us to try to provide those things. So I don't like your motion because it doesn't provide funding this coming year. And I think what they need and what Brian doesn't have is how do we get in and maintain some of those trails right now, and how do we reach out for grants to not only maintain, but to develop other trails around this community that I think are so important. I'm not a mountain biker. I've never ridden some of these trails that I've not even walked, but I think that they need to be funded. And I think it's very important for the youth of this community to do that.
Point of clarification, sorry, not your friend, but you keep saying in your comments that we already have these trails maintained. I think we heard from Deborah, we have $50,000 in our budget currently for the maintenance of the trail. I think this is about, if I understand this right, this is about new trails and new trail development. I just want to be real clear what we're all talking about here, because it seemed like you kept saying about we need to have more money for maintenance. Of
My
trails.
understanding was it was threefold. It was maintenance, it was planning, maintenance, and building. So it's.
And I
what they
mentioned
are
all three.
proposing for
Okay.
us, what they're proposing for that line item is above and beyond just maintenance, but it does include maintenance.
Yeah.
So that we are really kind of saying we're advocates of trails.
Okay, and I just heard you say maintenance.
No,
That's why I
No,
wanted to-
I was saying all three.
Okay.
The planning, the maintenance, the development of trails. But you can't just lay it on the Parks Department, because I don't think Brian's gonna take your 50,000 that you've got dedicated for trails in Glenwood Springs and go out into Garfield County on BLM property and use that money to maintain those trails. So, you know, you have to have funding. Maybe there should be, you already have 50,000, but there needs to be funding that goes beyond Glenwood Springs. It reaches out to these trails, to the trailhead, to the top of the trail, to the bottom of the trail, wherever that may end up.
And in reference to that, you're speaking to Lookout Mountain. Is Garfield County?
Well, and even, yeah, Lookout Mountain, or even if you go, well, anywhere you go, you're gonna leave the city of Glenwood quickly, right? So you can't, I wouldn't support just throwing money at trails inside the city limits of Glenwood. All these trails provide an asset to Glenwood Springs. And I would also say that, and I don't want to go on and on, Tony's, I know he's dying to get out of here, and I am too.
That's part of that MOU that we did on consent to, working with BLM.
Right. RFMBA has always come to this city council because it's a partnership with the city. This isn't like every other nonprofit that is a self-serving nonprofit. This has always been a partnership with the city of Glenwood Springs, and it fills in the gap from where Brian can get to where RFMBA, I can never pull it all together, RFMBA fills in that gap. And that's why he's always come here for that.
Finish.
I'm, I guess, I'd like for you to amend your motion.
So that we get the funding this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. 22.
In 2022. So I gotta go back to my motion. My motion was to have.
We can't hear.
I'm sorry. My motion was to make this a line item in the 2023 budget and beyond with the recommendation from the Parks and Rec Commission. And if we could find the funding in 2022 to also apply it there.
Yeah.
So
And I would
you are
agree.
asking me to just say, including finding that funding for 2022.
Yeah.
I would amend this. But that
I
depends
can't
on.
amend my second on that, just because just about to approve our 2022 budget tonight, and we're already.
Right.
So if Shelley will withdraw her second, I would second.
I will withdraw my second.
Okay, then I'll second yours. And I'm just gonna make just a few short comments, and that is that I think we should be looking at the mountain biking industry similar to how we look at the skiing and snowboarding industry. It brings people into our community. I think it is a form of tourism at this point. And so investing in it is hugely important. It takes it to a level where people are coming here. They're coming from all over the state. This is one of the fastest growing industries for recreation. Can it grow too fast? Can there be a negative impact? Absolutely. And in multiple comments made, I heard that there is a checks and balance system in place on making sure that we don't grow in such a way that we do damage. When I step back, I hear Steve say this is good for the youth of the community, because when they're addicted to mountain biking, they're probably not going to be addicted to nicotine too. The two just don't align together. So this is something for kids to do in a community, and it's hip. It's really a good recreational thing that we support, that grows our community, and it's timely. Right now, it is a growing industry right now, which means that we need to support it, because mountain bikers hear about new trails and they come to our community and they spend money in our community. So to me, I see tourism dollars as an appropriate application for something like this. I just want to make one more comment. I think everybody is already feeling commented out, but these investments are a little lower cost than a lot of the other nonprofits that we support. So when we support Grizzly Hockey, that's a little bit more of an internal funding. This supports a larger audience. This supports, I'm going to just ride that ride all the way to, I think this is really supports drawing people in. People spend money here, and I think it's good for the community as a whole. They also bring their own gear. So we're not funding that as well. And we don't need water in order to do this either. So regardless of, changes or what we can do, this is not something that we have to water to make green. This is something that once it's built, it can service so many different people. So for the sake of Tony, I'm gonna stop right there.
Sorry, Tony.
You can talk as long as you want. I mean, we've spent almost an hour and 15 minutes on this.
And so to me, what that says is it's important.
It's not that important. It's $50,000 and there are people waiting here for other.
All right. So I'm just gonna keep hitting this until I get to talk. I hate this. I think this is micromanaging staff. I think that this is us telling, the time to have done this was 60 days to 75 days ago. To when Deborah sat, we were all around the table, and Deborah said, and it was great. I thought it was Christmas when she said, "What else? It's the budget season. What else do you guys want?" I didn't hear a whole lot. I wanted swag. I wanted cool outfits with the Glowing Springs logo. So I think we're going to get something. So I was really excited about that. I didn't hear anybody talk about mountain biking. It wasn't a priority. It's not in our strategic plan. It's not in our goals and outcomes. It's not something. Now, I love mountain biking. I have ridden on all of the trails. I want to start off by, I'm a huge supporter. I ride it. My daughter is a budding mountain biker. She's going to be a dirt beat. I hope she's going to be dirt beat someday. She loves it. Just 2 weekends ago, we went to Fruita. And part of the reason we went to Fruita and the reason we go to Newcastle is because their trails are in and our trails are out. We only have about 5 months here where we can take advantage of that because of the nature of topography. We got snow and you can't go in and you can't trash the trails. But Newcastle and Fruita's in almost all year round. So I think we have not a very limited, but it is seasonal. It is somewhat like ice hockey or skiing. Well, it's getting longer than skiing. Skiing is getting shorter. But I just hate that we are directing staff to outside of the budget process. I think it's fine for us to say to staff during the budget process, this is a priority. We've done that in the past with a public information officer, with other positions, with other priorities. I think that's appropriate. It's not appropriate after the budget process to be talking about this. I think it's appropriate to talk about this as a grant to a nonprofit during the financial advisory board, which is going to happen in 60 days. I think the timing of this and how it's being asked for us to put our thumb on staff and to direct them to find this money and to reprioritize Brian's budget, I just don't think it's what we want to be doing or be in the weeds. You know, the city has support as far as going for grant fundings. I mean, I worked as a nonprofit director for 15 years. You go to the funders who fund these kind of things, you ask for the grant, you say, here's the support we have gotten. We've given hundreds of thousands of dollars to soft paths in the last half decade, millions of dollars for bike paths, for sidewalks, multimodal opportunities. So to say that you can't go to a funder and say, we have unequivocal support from the city, I think is just wrong. I mean, I could write anything, I'll write the grants, I'll say that. You know, if I work, you know, we have heard from the community that affordable housing is a huge issue, that childcare is a huge issue. I'm gonna tell Early Childhood Network, which I used to be executive director of, to come to our next meeting, bring a bunch of kids and ask us for $50,000 to be allocated every year out of our funding. And then we will direct staff to find money out of some other budget. And that's how we should budget that. And then the next week, I'm gonna tell Roy Ford, I'm gonna tell another nonprofit to come before us and do this. We have a process for this. And I am so supportive of Michael, what you do. Thank you for what you've done. And I'm so supportive of this council, past councils, yourselves included, for allocating that money. I just think that this is not the way to do it. I think that, you know, to Steve's point, a lot of these trails are interjurisdictional. I think we should talk to the Garfield County Commissioners. We should, anything that we would potentially do would be a match with Garfield County Commissioners, because it is a regional amenity. It is, these trails are primarily in county land. Not that they don't benefit Glenwood Springs citizens. So I just guess that I barely can support what Paul's original motion is. I can't support this motion because I don't want to direct staff outside of the process that we have, because I think it's gonna be open season for us for every other nonprofit that comes before us. So that's why I won't be supporting it. And I would make another motion afterward. Yes, sir.
Did she change her motion?
She did.
No, I thought you just said it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
will you bang your gavel at me if I say here?
Yes, I will.
I agree with you.
Say it.
I agree with you.
Out of order.
Thank you.
If there's not support for this, can we remind them of the FAB
Of the
grants and how
process?
that, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Okay, great.
you're reminded.
We need to probably take,
Hopefully they
like,
would know the process.
Yes.
I thought we
Yeah.
were ahead of the budget process.
I
For
got
20.
15 minutes.
22.
All right, Ryan, let's call the question.
Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wellman,
No.
Mayor Godus,
No.
Counselor Hershey,
No.
Counselor Cow.
No.
Counselor Russo,
yes.
motion fails 4-3.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you all
I did.
for all the
Mr. Mayor, and all.
long discussion, and we'll see you at the financial advisor.
I did. I'm sorry, Mike.
Sorry, Charlie.
Oh, Charlie's up to call.
Thank you for coming, and we strongly encourage you to go through the FAB, the Financial Advisory Board, the Great Education process, and make your funds request there. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Well, yeah, but it's a different story.
Yeah, hey, can we take a 5-minute break? Yeah.
How are you?
A 5-minute break.
Oh. I'm all.
No,
Yeah, I was like.
Hi, Steve.
No, because that's the kind of last.
Oh, God.
I want you to look. I mean, seriously, like, they're not profit, they're legit not profit,
Yeah.
just like everybody else, they want to ask like 10,000, we give them 10,000, that 10,000, I got no problem with that.
Yeah, that's what.
Hey.
I've been.
All right, we're back in session. We back in session? That's more of a question, I guess.
I'm just saying.
All right, item number 17, Lake Avenue roadway.
Going back to 15.
I would make a
Yep.
motion to continue number 15.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to talk about this.
No, I know you want to talk about a lot of things, but I'm making a
Yeah.
motion and we'll let the majority.
Is your motion to put it towards the end? If we get to it, we get to it?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody if we take the 20
Because these
things?
people are waiting, and they don't want to listen to us talk about this. Why we don't have.
What are these?
Okay, we'll put it at the end.
Go ahead. Somebody on Lake Avenue.
Where'd you go?
Blake.
Blake.
You're up now.
Blake?
Yeah, you just moved.
No,
No.
we moved the other thing.
The other thing.
You moved 15 to the end. Actually, Matt, we moved you to midnight. Could you come back?
I will still be here.
I hope we're not.
Where's the tourist board on this?
They're not here. She's just here as a citizen.
I know where you live.
Hey, Lisa.
I want to.
Lisa.
That's exactly.
Not stay until 11.
I could.
Maybe.
We're all adults up here.
All right.
We are.
Fairly.
Any question? Escape.
Hard to see. Maybe I'll try to turn the lights off.
Share screen.
I can see on our screen.
Yeah.
You can see it on your screen.
Can people see?
We
it?
can see it.
No.
Public see it?
Paula can't. see.
Should be now.
Haven't we done
No,
this
if you
already?
turn around and
Just
look
like
at it, you can't see it either.
Yeah, it's,
I'll make it bigger.
Oh, that's,
it's very much.
it does do a little bit.
Is that better?
Yeah, for 8 years.
Thank you.
So the,
Over and over and over again.
Totally.
it's only 8:30. We're getting too punchy too early.
We've already seen this.
You guys ready?
Yep.
Okay. Terry and I wanted to bring Blake Avenue back in front of you guys one more time. I know this is a crazy conversation we've had several times. Mostly this is my doing. Terry's just supporting me. What we planned for next year for Blake Avenue is a $160,000 project. Basically, we were gonna go in, just mill the whole entire thing out about 10 inches and put 6 inches of road base back in and 4 inches of asphalt. After seeing the construction schedule that Bell Ribbey is currently on, they don't have buildings up, they don't have a road in, they don't have water, sewer, anything in at this point, and it's almost 2022. What we would like to do is basically forego the $160,000 expenditure on reconstruction of this road for next year. Let Bell Ribbey get done with at least a building or two, open the gate up, do the one-way between 26th and 27th Street, and let us see what that does. You know, we were just making traffic projections, traffic engineers are making traffic projections. I'd actually kind of like to see how the traffic flows in that area, what 26th to 27th Street looks like, how people interact with it, because that section of road also affects 23rd to 26th Street. And I know that Paula and a lot of the council members would like to see some kind of pedestrian facility within Lake Avenue. It's a very narrow right of way. If you go outside of the right of way, you're basically at some people's front doors, you're taking up their parking, all these kinds of other fun things. So instead of just going in and spending $160,000 to kind of just make it nice, I'd like to use some of that money to actually hire a consultant once we see what's going on with the one-way traffic and how the traffic flows. Hire a consultant. It's just roadway surfacing. It's not that expensive. It's not water and sewer and profiles. It's a little bit of storm sewer, but it's not overly extravagant project, and budgeted as a proper project in 2023.
we're gonna do Red Mountain. You guys approved that earlier in consent agenda. We're gonna do some Wolfson Road stuff this year and make that nicer. We're doing pocket projects throughout town. We'd like to make this kind of one of the bigger projects for 2023 and get this thing done, but have the facts behind it to be able to move forward with it properly. I can show you all kinds of maps, the storm sewer out there starts, stops, starts, stops. I mean, I don't know what happened to it over the time period, but it doesn't exist. And that's part of the reason that Bell Rippey had some problems with some of the storm sewer design. We didn't have infrastructure to help them. It'd be nice to get that infrastructure in. I have this one up because that infrastructure would have to go to 24th Street and down to CDOT right away. CDOT infrastructure is a little undersized. So there's a lot of details to work out, but this isn't like Midland where we knew we were going to spend 120 grand to get us through 2.5 years. We knew we needed to do that. There were so many potholes. This is more like, let's just wait, check the traffic out, make some good decisions, come back to you with some ideas, whether it's a 4-foot sidewalk or a 5-foot sidewalk, or how that's going to look, where it's not sitting on people's front doors, but still functions, and do a proper project on this in 2023.
Thank you. Questions?
So he's asking just for delay.
Okay, is there a motion? Question?
I move that we delay this project to 2023.
I'll second it.
Okay, been moved by Counselor Willman, seconded by Counselor Russo. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Matt.
Well, that was easy. Appreciate the positive recommendation.
You should have been agenda item 1.
1 through 18.
And 2.
Yeah, the next one's gonna go just as quick. You think so?
But you would have missed all that conversation about mountain biking. I know you're interested.
Apologize to you once.
I hope that we have free ice cream on Fridays at the city of Clement Springs. All in favor?
Funny tonight.
I'll do it. Hey, minor computer problem. I will have to fix this.
What else about this? These are breakfast and power.
No, I did a little PowerPoint. I just didn't transfer to thumb drive.
No.
Read it. That's it.
What's ice cream for lactose intolerant? Frozen now.
Just everything is angry at me on the computer.
There must be an ice cream person.
Soy?
Soy ice cream.
Yeah, soy ice cream.
Or almond milk ice cream.
No. Or no ice cream.
No, because I have notes on the computer. I was just trying to keep it. Almost done. Almost done.
Sloppy Joe.
There we go.
We just do a motion now.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve whatever he's going to talk about.
I'll second that.
I've been here for a while. You gotta be talking.
Actually,
Huh?
we can just approve it.
What is that?
This is Bill's apparently. I'm
Well,
overriding.
that's our current street.
There we
conditions,
go.
Tony.
See, that's funny too.
So get some.
Oh, this doesn't look much better.
Oh, it's gonna be better.
We get Tony Lowe on that one.
Who's that? Mount Sopris Tribe.
It looks like
Getting funny.
Okay, I apologize. Sorry about that. I thought I had transferred it over. I'll make this one as fast as the last one. So, Public Works and Engineering have been working on a pedestrian crossing or kid crossing for Sopris Elementary School for several years now. You know, what the problem with that crossing was, is it really wants to be an elevated crossing. It wants to have nice concrete. It wants to be in an appropriate location. Engineering had met with the school district several years ago and kind of determined where they'd like to see that crossing. The problem with the crossing is it kind of messes up all the drainage. It's not very good on Mount Sopris Drive anyhow. This is taken from about where the crossing would be, facing back towards Midland Avenue, this section of Mount Sopris and the section from Old Lodge to basically Mountain Drive, they're very wide parking areas, but they're gravel and they're extremely flat. So basically when somebody pulls into these parking areas, they stop draining because they create ruts, so somebody burns out and it no longer functions. So what we'd like to do is kind of create a mini project for next year using basically some marijuana tax, because it is a pedestrian school facility, use some of the safe routes to school. I have one project that we've got for about 25,000. We were going to kind of abandon next year. It wasn't feasible to do. So we have the money to do a nice project over here. And I should use my slideshow so I can show you. And all these fun things I just told you about, I was on this slide, which use that. But basically, existing conditions are poor. We don't have very good crossings over there. There are some barricades to help the kids be protected from not getting hit from cars. You know, there's kind of a poor condition over there. What we'd like to end up with is paved parking on the north side of the road where the gravel is, additional curb and gutters and inlets because we have some water issues out there, which I'll show you in a second. Addition of an inlet to the school entrance and paved entrances to Victorian Pines and the Parkwood homes. Both of those right now are just gravel entrances. I won't belabor on pictures, but this is the entrance to Sopris Elementary. And if you've ever been over here while it rains, this is a pond. There is no drainage in or out of this location. The school has good drainage. They have their own pond, but this roadway drainage goes absolutely nowhere. And the actual pavement over there and the concrete are starting to degrade. And that's all the water coming from city facilities. Basically, it's the right of way. These are the barricades that some of the shorter kids kind of hide behind before they skirt across the road, because I drive this quite frequently. So it would be improving upon those barricades. Another picture just kind of looking back. It's an extremely flat road. More gravel parking. And this is basically this picture on the bottom right here, hope you can see it, is basically the end of the Midland Avenue construction. So what they have done is created a very nice storm sewer system coming off of 4 Mile, picking up all the water at the beginning of Mount Sopris here. And there's an inlet that is in location right about here. I know it's buried, but there is one there. And what we're proposing is, if I can get it flipped to it, doing something like this. School entrance, Parkwoods, Victorian Pines, and putting the pedestrian crossing not at the intersection itself, but adjacent to this location here, so that the kids coming from this direction have a nice easy crossing, an improvement, handicap walk improvement right here, curb and gutter all the way around, and an infrastructure system that would be picking up water in a storm inlet here, because it's so flat, I can't get the water to go from Mountain Drive back to the inlet over by Victorian Pines. You'd actually have to create a low point over here. And create actual paved parking in that location. So kind of a rough cross section of what that would look like here. And I guess do we have questions? Lots of questions. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah, I guess. How much? Quantity.
Rough projections from the prices we've seen this year. Some of the prices we're seeing from Gould next year for phase 2. And the other prices were between $215 and $235 is the best estimate at this moment.
That's all city staff work.
So we would have SGM go out and expand their survey that they did for South Midland, encompass this area over here with some detailed information. Terry, Jessica have sort of kindly offered to put some drawings together. Basically what we need is a site plan with dimensions on it, a flow line elevation on the curb and gutter, and some flow line profiles for the storm sewer. And we'll go pothole everything to make sure that there's no conflicts with the storm sewer, and we'll put that plan set together and bid it out. I don't promise it'll be the spring, but our intention is to get this done next year.
I would add to the pedestrian safety part of it. I've been out on the site with Terry Wilson a number of times, probably at least 3 different times, looking at both of the drainage and pedestrian safety. And we've seen cars kind of roar past here. So that was one of the reasons why we felt like having a raised median, some sort of traffic calming in the road was a good idea. So that's kind of where it started. And then, in designing that raised median, we recognized that the poor drainage got worse with the raised median. So it helped us to start working on drainage systems, and then needing to extend it further to the west
to tie into the drainage systems that we're placing right now.
So to be, I guess, lately consistent here, is there a reason why this wasn't included in the budget process for 2022 3 months ago? Is this, I mean, just a new, I mean, with this conditions existed for as long as I've lived here, and why is it now versus 5 months ago?
Well, I kind of leaned into two different things. One, we're kind of killing Blake Avenue, so we need another little project for the year. That'll be a design project. We were trying to we try to do a certain amount of projects in a year and just kind of keep improving things. We have had a lot of neighborhood outreach in this location. And you know, it's a good beginning because it's, like I said, it's just the same condition from Old Lodge all the way back to Mountain Drive again, over up by Red Cliff Apartments. I forget the name of them. And that's going to be another little mini project over there. And then Glenwood Park as a whole will be coming in front of you in the next 2 or 3 years as a design project. And then we'll kind of connect everything back together because it basically drains north. Mount Sorpus is its own kind of little drainage system. So it's a good little project to replace Blake Avenue with. We have had a lot of public outreach. We've been looking at it for a few years. Let's just kick this thing off and get it going.
But was the Blake Avenue project in the same price range?
It was in the 160 price range.
So
it's that
gonna go to
low
that.
250s.
We're gonna go to the marijuana fund for the difference.
Marijuana.
Oh, gotcha, because it's school related.
Yeah.
Kids, safety.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Is the median that's shown, a couple questions, is the median going to be a planter or will that be like pressed pavement or something?
I don't think we thought too far about how it looks, but I'm guessing that Brian, if you were paying attention, would vote no planters. We'll probably do some sort of paver kind of thing.
If we did planters, it'd be an irrigation system and then the cost
Yeah.
Right.
Just be
goes
that
up
much
again.
more.
It's a safe landing zone for the kids, basically.
Right.
Come
Okay.
across, you make sure it will continue on.
They can stop there if they
Yeah.
need to.
Traffic.
And how
calming.
wide is that crosswalk?
That crosswalk, I believe we designed at 6 feet.
Just wondering.
And would you actually take that crosswalk out at the intersection of Mountain Drive and Mount Sorpus Drive? And would there actually be? Okay.
Yes.
And what's a typical crosswalk width if we stripe it?
You know, ideally, we put it in at 8 feet. We might want to consider widening it to go to our 8-foot standard. Okay. Because I think they're all 8 feet, you know, out on Midlands.
Very similar to 13th in the middle.
Yeah, except this one has a stop sign, will it?
What's that?
This one has a stop sign, will it?
It's gonna have an
Not yet.
It's gonna have an RRFB.
You have a sign shop.
I
No,
want a
it'll-
sign shop.
We'll move the rapid flashing beacon from the existing pedestrian crosswalk over to this one. We could have a conversation about pedestrians if we want 6 or 8 feet. 6 is about the minimum that we would like to go for that. We could potentially go to 8. Doesn't really change the cost a whole lot.
Okay, just seems good. Kids crossing.
And this will be the main focal point because there's kids crossing, you know, like if I get the pointer on here, they cross here and here and here and here. We'll try to funnel them back together. The curb and gutter will help with that a little bit of buffer zone from the sidewalk to the curb and gutter. We'll kind of funnel people to this location.
And Terry, or will there be some lighting like that, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Is it that on demand that flashes?
Yep, the RFB will be moved to
But
this
you
new
say you're
location.
moving.
There's already one out there and it's at the intersection. We'd be moving it back to this location. So it's about 30 feet.
But wouldn't that encourage people to cross to answer that question?
Yes. Yeah. Some people see the rapid flashing beacon and go straight to it, push the button.
Right, and then we'll cross here.
All right, any other questions?
It just, I know there's probably one question, at least one other ask, I won't go too long on this one. The reason it's here is we talked about leaving it back over here, but then the kids have to cross the kiss
parking
and go
lots.
lane, which is a continuous turning
They
movement.
have to cross the line.
The
Well,
kiss
there's-
and go lane,
Yeah, the kiss and go lane goes around, and so that's actually really dangerous.
very dangerous. We're moving it to the front side.
Is that where you say goodbye to your kids?
Kiss and go lane.
Some days it is.
Public comment, please.
We turned the.
Renee, you're up. You didn't wait around all night just to hear us talk about our electronic participation policy.
Did
Did you?
budget of the co-top.
Okay, hi. So I spoke before, I'm Renee McCullough. I live at 1000 Mount Sopris Drive. So as you can see, it's one of those houses right along it. And I've lived there 32 years, and it's the purpose here why I came here tonight, not for the Historical Society. And I've lived here 32 years, and for a while, the city used to have a worker that used to come along and fix the swale. He would do that once a year, and then the drainage would be okay for 3 months. And since he retired, then that drainage, as you could see on that very first picture, that was my car and that was my lake. That's my lakeside property. And I am so tired of having lakeside property that if I can't tell you guys how much this would mean to me to have this completed so that that whole swale in front of there no longer forms the lake. And the biggest, most important thing is so that the water that drains from the road to the swale onto the sidewalk does no longer form ice in the winter where the kids are walking along and literally ice skating along there and ice skating along the lake. So I can't tell you enough on how important this would be. I really don't care where the walkway, comes in, but all I care is that that lake goes away, there's still the parking there, and that there's curb and gutter, and that the ice doesn't form along the sidewalk so that kids, because basically that's gonna be your liability, the city's liability, our liability, if that isn't done. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee.
Would you pitch in $1,000?
No, this is nonprofit. I pitched in $1,000 to the nonprofit, not to the city.
We're gonna take out a ties budget.
There you go.
You're kind.
Yes.
Come up and talk to us.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, you are.
And really, I've said everything that I think.
Ty, can you just give your name?
I'm Ty.
Yes.
Kendria. I live in Victorian Pines. I run the outfitter service up at Sunlight. If anybody wants to go rip around on snowmobiles, come see me this winter. There's the pitch. I just want to say thank you, really, to you as well, Deborah, because I thought that was brilliant to incorporate what we're looking to do with the drainage in with the safety issue of the school, because it really does come together. As far as the funding aspect of it, with Terry, you gave you some credit, and Matt, for you coming out as many times as you have to look at it, and we all put our heads together, because the thing we were really trying to address, in addition to Renee's lake, in our lake, which your children have played in over the years as they've come by, as we all know, it is a safety issue. I mean, we were losing carports. Sparkle drives a Prius in and out, and my truck could barely get in and out of there without scraping. It fills up with water and it overflows the sidewalk. And the kids, some people say, hey, they cross in random spots, but they really don't. They do pay attention, and they go to where they feel they're protected in the concrete, and they cross there. So I believe that they are going to use that crosswalk with it without that fancy sign. We're very. Can you
speak into the microphone?
I can. I'm so used to just my voice being big enough. But yeah, thanks for hearing us out. Thanks for your team and tolerating my emails over the past couple of years. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ty. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Name?
Lisa Langer. I live at 902 Mount Sopris Drive. I'm actually the corner where all of the drainage is happening right now. All the digging is happening. It's kind of really an interesting look out there. But yeah, I would not like to have the pond that has developed over the years. I've been there 10 years now, coming up on 10 years, and it's gotten worse and worse over the years. And I'm just thrilled that with this new idea, new old fix, whatever it is, I think it will help immensely. I especially like the idea of the raised crosswalk, because we do get a lot of race cars
that go up and down Mount Sopris, and now that South Midland is paved, it's like 2:30 at night. So that will be a help, I think, to have that raised crosswalk. So thank you. Yes, please support it. And instead of shop local, then you can smoke local, and then that will contribute to the cost to the. So.
Well, you can gummy local. For those of us who worry about our lungs. Anybody else from public? All right, I bring back to council for comments or motion. I'll just make a comment.
Wait, Paula has.
Oh, I'm
something.
sorry.
Yeah.
Paula Duravinsky, can you state your name and where you live, please?
I have no idea. My name is Paula Duravinsky. I live at,
Grand Avenue.
thank you, 1128 Grand Avenue, and I also own one of the townhouses at Victorian Pines that is in the swimming hole competition to get into the little subdivision. I really don't understand why the gravel is on each side of the street when it was originally developing the subdivision, the whole subdivision at, I think it was done at about 1970. And that it does need to be paved, and that if we do have safety issues, not just for our townhomes, but also for what's going on with the school and any future construction that goes on in that area, we become the turnaround for the trucks. And thank you to both of you for the work that they've gone back and forth, and I hope you can support getting the street done properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right, Charlie.
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve the Mount Sopris Drive School Pedestrian Safety and Stormwater Project, not to exceed $235,000, and that be added to the 2022 budget, with the money coming from the marijuana tax and safe route to schools budget.
Second. It's been moved by Councilor Wellman, seconded by Mayor Gottis. Further comments?
My only comment is I'm a little concerned about the $235,000 because these are guesstimates. This is not an engineered set of plans that he's working off of, and they hadn't put it out to bid.
You want me to take that off the motion?
Yeah.
The top side?
It's gonna be, whatever.
I'm happy to take it off the top
But
side.
can we include Mr. Millman, that marijuana fund still?
Yeah, it comes from those funds, but I'll take off the top side for right now.
And I think also if you would add, what was Blake?
Blake, yeah.
Street tax?
The 160,000, we could potentially pull some from the Blake budget itself if we needed to drag some over.
Let me rephrase the motion.
Yeah.
I move that we approve this project and that this, after we get engineering, the staff comes back to us with the budget for it.
Second. Okay, further comments? Shelley.
I very much support this, and thank you so much, Terry and Matt, for putting this project together and tying it in with all the Midland construction. It's a great time to get it done. I would love to see that crosswalk just meet that with a little wider if that works.
I'll just say this is a project that I walked this street 5 days a week, 9 months a year for the last 8 years. And last year I about killed myself because I was on my kid's scooter. Renee probably sees this ridiculous adult on his kid's scooter riding back every day. I went across the crosswalk and hit that gravel. And I Supermaned over it. And I thought I was going to die. I had gravel in my hands picking it out. I got up so all these cars are sitting around. And it's super hazardous. Well, it's hazardous to me specifically that day. But kids they're skating all over everything. And that water does splash up onto the sidewalk. So does this project also, we're gonna have curb and gutter, but is that sidewalk gonna get raised up? Are we gonna do anything with the sidewalk portion of it at this point? Not.
Well, I think I'd like to evaluate the idea of raising the sidewalk just to see what it would cost, because it would be better to be raised, but I think it will be protected behind the curb. So one way or another, we'll make sure that water isn't draining towards the sidewalk.
Okay.
And the Midland project was really the emphasis because that gave us a storm sewer system to actually hook into that was properly sized, so.
Yeah. And I would say that, Ty was a big advocate for trying to tie it into the South Midland project. We just
we hadn't scoped that, going down that street and, for many years, we've had this issue, talked to the Victorian Pines Homeowners Association about, drainage problems out there, but the road is actually in good condition. So normally when we address a drainage issue, we reconstruct the road. So I was very reluctant to tie it into, our South Midland project that had already been scoped. So, we were glad, I was glad that we kind of thought of the idea of tying the pedestrian safety issue into the drainage. And we needed to address the drainage with pedestrian safety, and it was extending the curb and gutter further to the west to tie into the system that we had already built. So it worked out, but yeah, we struggled a little bit on funding and which project it should come out of.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to the community members that stayed with us throughout the evening, and also just for your persistence and your patience with this, and that I look forward to seeing it completed.
All right, Ryan, let's call the question.
Counselor Hershey,
Yes.
Counselor Cow,
Yes.
Counselor Russo,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yep.
Counselor Step,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wellman,
Yes.
Superman.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Everyone's here.
Like, you sure you guys don't want to just get you Sanford Beach? I think you really have a nice lake.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here. We really
Thanks,
do appreciate
Lisa.
it.
Will you just, we send me about once a week, another like 8-page email, just because I'll fill the withdrawals if I don't get that.
I actually have some, I want to talk to Terry about some options for the funding for your bridge.
Oh,
Yeah, anyway.
take that.
Look forward to more emails back.
All right, number 19, ordinance 19, series 21, 2021, and ordinance of the city council to amend the 2021 budget appropriation.
So moved.
Second.
It is
Yeah.
an ordinance.
It's an ordinance.
Oh, that's right.
Public comment?
Any public comment?
No.
No public comment?
Do you want to talk, Steve?
Okay, I'll bring it back for motion. I'll close public comment, bring it back for motion.
So moved.
Can you explain to the public what we're approving tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys, at the end of every year, we do a final budget amendment just to kind of shore things up and let you guys know what we're thinking about carrying over for the next year, and that's what this is. So if you approve this, there will be no more changes to the 2021 budget.
It finalizes it essentially.
Finalized.
Is there extra money then?
Yes.
So an extra 50 grand?
There is, I mean, we're adding a fair amount of money back, mostly because Chief Darris doesn't have anybody working for him.
Yeah.
So
There's a-
I mean, he throws in about $800,000 to our general fund. He got the budget award this year for most generous contribution to general fund reserve.
$800,000.
Oh my God. That's so sad.
Yes, not
Yeah,
great.
but we've already.
I don't know if you appreciate it.
I'll vote again.
Oh,
May I make,
I'll second
are
again.
we at comments yet?
Thank
Can I
you for-
ask one question of you?
I don't know we need comments, but okay.
In future, one thing that I'm curious if I'm just not finding it, like in SharePoint or something, is there a spreadsheet that helps us keep kind of track of what has been spent year to date of marijuana tax? And also then for this 7.5 from the tourism tax, so that we can, when a budget item or an agenda item comes up that says, we're gonna use this, that I can kind of reference and see what the remaining balance is. of
yeah,
those.
you mean just go to year to date?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get you guys year to dates on any fund you want.
Okay, that would be so helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
But we don't do it, like, it's not like something we do monthly.
Yeah, we don't do it.
So, okay,
I mean, we generally provide quarterly reports, right? It's taken us a while to get there, but we're there now. So, yep, I can get you.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, we'll try to do a little more. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Any more questions for Steve? We'll open a public hearing. We'll close the public hearing. We'll bring it back again for a motion.
Move.
So moved by Counselor Wellman, seconded by Counselor Hershey. And any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, number 20. Ordinance 21, series of 2021. These are appropriating funds for the 2022 budget.
Can you explain that to us, Steve?
Sure. So in the first meeting in November, you guys passed a budget for 2022. This is appropriating the funds for that budget in 2022. So Deborah has the resources to do what is in the budget.
Not unlike what the Congress does, correct?
Exactly.
They appropriate it, but then they have to.
They pass it and then they have to appropriate. Yep.
You budget.
Our
By the
numbers
way,
aren't
they
changing.
approved the budget, the extension tonight, there will be no government.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion on ordinance 21, series of 2021, for the city of Glenwood appropriating funds for the 2022 budget, a motion to approve.
Second.
Motioned by Councilor Russo, seconded by Councilor Stepp. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
You
carries.
didn't see public comment.
Oh. Thank you.
did?
You took public comment
Oh,
first.
I thought it-
Is there any public comment?
No.
Okay, we'll close public hearing.
Thank you, guys.
Do it again.
No.
Okay.
And I would say just for the public and your benefit, a reminder that underneath the charter, appropriation ordinances only require one reading, so you will not see this on the consent agenda on a second reading. It's the only ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, at this time, I would like to make a motion on the next item if I could.
Sure.
I would like to make a motion directing the city attorney and giving him authority with regards to a pending lawsuit against the city brought by the BLD group pursuant to Colorado Rules of Civil Procedure 106. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, to enter into a stipulation
Oh,
to
to
address
enter
the
into-
claims presented,
To enter into a stipulation
to address the claims presented.
to address the claims presented.
I'll second Tony's motion.
Thank you,
Moved
Steve.
by Councilor Hershey, seconded by Councilor Davis.
Yeah.
I just go back to second first name? Ryan, let's call the question.
Can we do a roll call? vote, please?
Mayor Gertis,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Hershey,
Yes.
Counselor Cow,
Yes.
Counselor Russo,
Yes.
Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wellman.
Yes.
And Mr.
Yeah, I mean, got it.
Mr. Hanlon, we don't have a meeting the rest of the month and then the Christmas holidays. Will you be able to keep us updated?
I will. I've tried to, as you know, have
Email.
multiple emails regarding it, and so I will keep you advised as to where we're at, if anything significant changes in the discussions that I've had with the LLC regarding all the issues.
Thank you, Carl.
Absolutely. I did want to just confirm, while we're on the subject, that all 7 of you will be here on January 6th.
Probably.
That wasn't the question.
Yes.
I have nowhere to go.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I know. I just wanted,
Why are you looking at me?
That's the plan.
I don't know.
Christian, can you take
because
place?
you have a busy travel schedule. Yeah, actually, you and Paul
My
and Michelle
bad.
probably have the busiest travel schedules. I mean, got some travel coming up, so I just wanted to confirm that date. Everybody's here. Thank you.
Wouldn't miss it.
Okay, do we want to go back and hit the ordinance about electronic participation? What do you guys
I
think?
think it's a longer conversation, it's my concern, but if you want to do.
I mean, so we put it in, this is the 2019 version. I got some really great comments from Shelley. I don't know if you would like me to, I mean, since it's at the end of the agenda anyway, I could update with some of the thoughts that she had and present it to you guys again, hopefully earlier on an agenda if that works.
Yeah.
And what I, just to update you all, what I sent to Carl and Mayor was the city of Denver recently passed a hybrid meeting electronic participation ordinance. And they had some interesting, it looked like good concepts in there.
Yeah, and I will say, I will confess that this one was drafted pre-COVID. And I mean, I just
Shelley,
typed in what the 2019 one was, which is the difference on technology and everything. But what we
Can I
have.
get real quick, just
Just a
point of
real quick
order, just
question.
real quick.
Is that in response to COVID though, the Denver thing?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, but it was a little more encompassing.
Okay.
So can I just
Share that with
suggest,
the rest of you?
can I just suggest that either we adopt or we take this action up as an agenda item, actually talk about it or continue it to the next agenda? Because it feels like we're just kind of talking about it.
How about if we continue it and maybe could we send out the Denver ordinance? I could send that to you or Carl.
And I guess I'd like to, as long as we're delaying it, I will have time in December to incorporate some of those concepts and sort of update. I mean, I've got some input from you guys in various ways, so.
Does the 6th give you enough time or the 20th?
The 6th is fine.
I want to comment, I guess, because I think we should rewrite it. There's a way to update it. I appreciate you looking at that, Shelley, bring that. I'm not comfortable even after watching tonight, again, with doing anything until we get the new technology at the city council. I don't want to, I think I'm going to favor this at that point. Right now, I'm not going to favor it because I don't think the technology's there, and I'm concerned about that. And I participated in several hybrid meetings on the CML, and they're okay, but they're not great.
Can't we put a condition on any approval, though, that it be implemented once that goes in?
Yeah, and keeping in mind, it will be 2 readings plus 10 days after final publication. So even if we take it up on January 6th, I don't know what the date, I don't know when the final technology will be updated. We have some time.
Yeah.
And we're just talking
Can I make a
about
motion? I'm
policy.
gonna make a motion to continue this until the January 6th meeting. So we can
I'll
provide
second
it
the
at
motion.
Thank you.
The Ingraham.
This has been moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Russo. All those in favor of continuing this? Or we can keep talking about it.
Aye.
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 Any
Nay.
opposed?
Nay.
Okay,
The
motion passes
Ingraham
6-1.
Initiative.
All right,
To adjourn.
report from city manager.
Say, looking forward to seeing you guys that can come tomorrow night for the holiday party. I think it's
What time?
important.
I'm sad to miss
I
it.
know, I'm sorry. And then also I'm excited about the ribbon cutting Monday with the governor. So I think I've heard from a couple of you, it should be nice, and
Wait, is that this Monday?
you're coming.
You better be.
You had one job.
Yeah. Obviously not running a good meeting.
I think we are gonna put a press release out maybe-ish on Red Mountain. Red Mountain? Second, maybe eventually, but you guys did approve a $2 million reconstruction of a neighborhood streets, and I figured that was good to say on consent today, so that's all I got.
I just wanted to say happy holidays and also just thank you. You know, we've had some tough, couple of tough issues come up this year. Even this latest one, I appreciate your help on getting through those.
Yours also.
Yeah, thank you.
I just have one more thing for the good of the order. It is the Lions Club 100th anniversary in Glenwood Springs. Charlie has graciously agreed to welcome them on January 8th for luncheon. I'd like to do a proclamation for them on the January 6th meeting, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah. Thanks,
So I've reached out to the Rotary and Kiwanis to see if they would send a representative and kind of have not a service night, because we want to keep it about the Lions Club, just as support of 100 years is pretty impressive. So anyway.
Qantas had that like a year or two. They-
Anything else for the good of the order? I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilor Russo, motion by Councilor Stepp, second by Councilor Russo. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1.